the Hogwarts professor mixed into Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Clever Goo-Goo. Afternoon, Hogwarts, Black Lake. Look, that seems to be Professor Lockhart. Hey, is Professor Lockhart also here to see the scenery? Have you seen something flashing over there? I saw it. Do you know what it is? 3 Ravenclaw female students were discussing near the Black Lake, while curiously looking at Professor Lockhart sitting by the lake. Today is Lockhart's holiday, and for the 6th year wizard students, there are no classes this afternoon. So, some students choose to study on their own, while others come to the Black Lake to see the scenery. Do you want to go over and take a look? Go ahead. Professor Lockhart is pretty handsome. Yes, and he's a professor from our Ravenclaw college. Yeah, that's right. He's much better than the previous defense against the dark arts professors. As they spoke, several girls held hands, smiled, and pushed and shoved towards Lockhart. At this moment, Lockhart looked at the excited Goo-Goo flying around in front of him, and a few of them teleported around him from time to time, with a faint smile on his face. It was agreed that he would take a vacation today. In the morning, he accompanied Hagrid to visit the Forbidden Forest. Not only did he meet a unicorn, but he also had a bull escape bird as his pet. It can be said that the morning was very fruitful. In the afternoon, he ran to the Black Lake to see the scenery and enjoy the cool autumn breeze. In short, he had to have fun today. However, looking at the overly excited Goo-Goo in front of him, Lockhart suddenly thought of the cat he had raised in his previous life. It seemed that he was quite timid at the beginning, but after getting familiar with it, he became bolder. Every day, he was very excited, running around in his house, and occasionally causing him some trouble. For example, scratching the sofa, scaring the bird he raised, etc. Looking at the excited bull escape bird Goo-Goo in front of him, he suddenly had an inexplicable sense of deja vu. Goo-Goo's habits would not be the same as those of cats. After a little thought, Lockhart put it aside, closed his eyes, put his hands behind his head, lay on the grass, and felt the autumn breeze passing through his body, which was very comfortable. At this moment, his heart was very peaceful, and he put aside all the Voldemort Horcruxes, runes, Dumbledore, etc. His heart was clear, and he only wanted to sleep peacefully and enjoy the comfort of this day. Goo-Goo, who was flying in the air, looked at his breeder with some doubts. He didn't think much about it. It was the first time he came here, and felt very comfortable here. In fact, it felt that this place was very comfortable. In fact, it came from the magic array of Hogwarts. As a school for young wizards, it would naturally use certain means to soothe the magic riots in the bodies of young wizards. At the same time, the magic in the air will become very peaceful. It is very suitable for wizards to live in, and it is also very suitable for magical creatures like Goo-Goo. Well, it feels that it is right to come with this breeder. I just ate a lot of good things, and now I have come to such a good place. Sure enough, intuition will not deceive itself. After a while, it saw 3 creatures that looked similar to the one lying on the keeper coming over cautiously. However, it felt that they had bad intentions. So it quickly flew to Lockhart, began to gently flap its wings on Lockhart's face, and called out, "Coo, coo, coo," but Lockhart still didn't move, still resting with his eyes closed. Well, he had already felt that the 3 students were coming, but it seemed that the target was not him, but Coo. Then he continued to rest, and the pet played with the students. With Coo's ability, who knows who will play with whom? As if sensing Lockhart's thoughts, Coo jumped on Lockhart's face a few times in anger, vented his anger, and flew into the sky. The keeper is a little unreliable, so he still has to rely on himself. Well, mainly because it didn't feel that the female students had any bad intentions, and the keeper was also next to it, so it was a little fearless. Or it could be said that the fox is taking advantage of the tiger's power. Nancy, this is the bull-eating bird, right? Professor Lockhart talked about it in class last time. Oh, it really is. It's really cute and adorable. Be careful. I heard from the professor that it's a little timid. But didn't Professor Lockhart say he had never seen it? What is it now? Will Professor Lockhart lie to us? Don't worry about it. Let's take a look first. Unfortunately, we don't know what it likes to eat. The professor didn't tell us. The three girls walked towards Gugu cautiously and took out their favorite snacks. Gugu, flying in the air, looked curiously at the three female students below who put some food with strange smells on the lawn. They stepped back several steps, as if to let it taste the food. But, do they think it has no brains? How stupid is it to eat unfamiliar things directly? But it smells pretty good. Gugu turned his head and looked at the breeder who was still lying on the ground next to him to rest. Gugu. After thinking about it, his body shook suddenly and he made an excited cry, as if he had thought of a brilliant idea. With a glimmer of light, Gugu teleported to the lawn and rolled up one of the small balls. He teleported again and brought it to the keeper's face, or more precisely, to Lockhart's mouth. He pushed it with his wings and looked at Lockhart with some expectation. Well, I'd better ask the keeper to try it before eating it. Lockhart felt a headache when he sensed this scene. He was afraid that Gugu would be a little upset in the future. He knew how to find someone to test the poison. Who knows how much trouble he will have in the future. However, the beans at his mouth seemed to be strange flavored beans. After thinking about it, he ate them. Hey, it tastes good. Beef flavor. Gugu was a little worried after seeing the keeper eat it, so he rolled a few more strange flavored beans and teleported them to Lockhart's mouth. Lockhart naturally opened his mouth and accepted them with a smile. Well, there is beef flavor, chicken flavor, and a strange one, a little sweet, but I can't tell what it tastes like. Gugu watched the keeper eat several beans and nothing happened. He was relieved immediately and glanced at the students standing next to him. Without paying any attention, it teleported directly to the snacks, rolled them up, and brought them to Lockhart, preparing to taste them slowly. It felt that the creatures that looked like the keepers seemed to be afraid of their keepers. In this case, it was not afraid. So, in front of several Ravenclaw students, it began to eat snacks. Wow, so smart. It can even feed food to the master. I want it too. Have you seen his little blue eyes? They look like gems. Why don't we go up and say hello to the professor and touch them at the same time? Nancy, this is a good idea. As she said this, Nancy, who had just proposed the idea, walked forward with her two friends behind her. However, this scared Cuckoo a little. It just felt that the food was good, but the creature that delivered the food not far away came towards it. It quickly flew up and hid behind the other ear of Lockhart's face. Cuckoo. While flapping, it shouted, as if to remind Lockhart that a creature was approaching. Chapter 102 Dumbledore's Distress. Professor, good afternoon. Feeling the students approaching and being a little annoyed by Gugu's cooking, Lockhart stood up. Hearing the three Ravenclaw girls standing in front of him greet him, he nodded slightly and replied, good afternoon. What can I do for you? The three Ravenclaw girls looked at Gugu standing on Lockhart's shoulder and asked expectantly, Professor, is this the ball-eating bird you mentioned last time? Can we touch it? It's so cute. Looking at the expectant expressions of the three, Lockhart thought for a moment and whispered to Gugu next to him, Gugu, they still have the snacks you ate just now. If you want more, you can ask them for them. Gugu. Gugu easily understood what Lockhart meant, but still asked with some doubts. Safe. Absolutely safe. Besides, with me here, they dare not hurt you. Hearing the keeper's assurance, Gugu waved his wings vigorously to express his agreement. Seeing this, Lockhart said to the three Ravenclaw students, it's called Gugu, and we just met today. It's a little shy. It thinks the snacks you gave it just now taste good. You can feed it some, maybe it will let you touch it. Hearing Professor Lockhart's words, the three students nodded instantly. Then, the three of them surrounded Gugu and began to please him in various ways, feeding him various snacks, whispering and exclaiming from time to time. And Lockhart continued to lie on the lawn. Since he decided to have a good rest today, he should rest enough and not think about other things. Hogwarts, the principal's office. Dumbledore sat in front of his large desk and carefully read the research experience of runes compiled by Lockhart. While reading, He picked up the candy next to him and tasted it. He was a little amazed, not to mention the content inside. Just looking at the format of this research experience, it can be seen that Lockhart's research ideas are very clear, as if he has a lot of experience in doing research. However, the content inside also surprised him a little. He thought he had come into contact with a lot of ancient runes, including some unknown magic runes. But the runes in front of him were completely different, as if they were a system of their own, and many of them could echo each other. Of course, what made him most curious was why he hadn't heard of such a wonderful rune before. Could it be that it had been lost for too long? It was also possible that Lockhart had chatted before and said that the rune inheritance was obtained in a certain magical relic. Magic has been passed down for thousands of years, especially the period of history before Christ, which is even more known as the Age of Magic. Maybe it was the research result of a wizard at that time. But unfortunately, for some unknown reason, a large number of wizards died at that time, and many inheritances were broken, leaving only one unknown magical relic after another. With a little regret, Dumbledore increased his reading speed. After a while, Dumbledore finished reading the entire research experience. After reading it, he drank a sip of honey, sat on a chair, staring at the phoenix next to him who was taking a nap with his eyes closed, wondering what he was thinking. Suddenly, Albus, how do you feel after reading Lockhart's research? Do we still need to open the Heritage Library? The portrait of Headmaster Armando Dupit on the wall asked. Of course we do. Look at our headmaster Dumbledore, who is afraid that he will teach another Dark Lord. As soon as Headmaster Dupit finished speaking, Headmaster Black continued, his tone full of sarcasm. Speaking of the Dark Lord, it was also born in your Slytherin house, and has nothing to do with our Ravenclaw house. Hearing the mocking tone of Headmaster Black, the portrait of Headmaster Delis Devant next to him spoke directly. She was from Ravenclaw house, and she had a good impression of Lockhart, who was also from Ravenclaw. Dumbledore ignored the quarrel in the portrait, and his expression seemed to be reminiscing about the past. Lockhart is indeed very talented, and has a lot of ideas. Through the entire research experience, it can be seen that the purpose of his research is to lower the threshold of magic, whether it is consumption or learning difficulty, etc. Hearing what Dumbledore said, the portrait of Principal Delis Devant said proudly, he is worthy of being a student of our Ravenclaw College. Look at his research. If it succeeds, he will at least get a first-class medal of the Order of Merlin. Principal Black next to him did not speak, as if he also knew that Lockhart's research was indeed very valuable to wizards. However, Dumbledore did not finish his words. He found some information through his research experience. It should be that Lockhart deliberately revealed it. He has begun to study the effects of blood and runes on mental power and magic respectively. He even proposed that once the research is successful, it is very likely that squibs will have the ability to cast spells. What does this mean? Dumbledore knew very well that there are a large number of squibs in the wizarding world now. If they all have the ability to cast spells and are included in the scope of wizards, then the number of wizards in the world may increase several times. Even if they cannot master powerful magic immediately, their number will also have an impact on the entire wizarding society. There will be many benefits, but the disadvantages are also obvious. Think about it, the original resources can only be used for 100 wizards, and now suddenly there are 500, 600, or even 1000. Even if the resources can be further expanded, friction will be inevitable in a short period of time, and killing will not be rare. What's more troublesome is, now I don't know when Tom will be resurrected. Traces were found last year. Based on his understanding of Tom, the other party will definitely take action in recent years. At this time, the chemical reaction caused by the two things mixed together is enough to give him a headache. Dumbledore thought for a while and simply stopped thinking about it. He had too little information in his hands and could not deduce any valuable results. In any case, Lockhart only proposed a direction, a concept, and there were no concrete results. Without results, it's just empty talk. However, the Heritage Library still needs to be entered. Runes are indeed very valuable, but it is better to know their origins. Hogwarts, 8th floor. Dumbledore stood in front of the tapestry of the giant stick-hitting Barnabas, walked back and forth 3 times, and scanned the wall opposite the tapestry. While walking, he silently chanted a spell in his heart. This spell is only known by the successive headmasters of Hogwarts. Every year, you can enter the Heritage Library of Hogwarts once through the Room of Requirement. The books inside are basically the most precious, strangest, and most valuable magical knowledge in the entire wizarding world. It can be said to be the most essential part of Hogwarts. Although there are many high-value books in the Hogwarts library outside, the value is incomparable to that of the Heritage Library. Entering the Heritage Library also requires a price, or more precisely, an entry condition. Every time you enter, you need to pay a high-value magic book that is not in the library. Such entry conditions have created every Hogwarts headmaster who keeps looking for the most valuable magical knowledge to put in the Heritage Library. However, this time, Dumbledore didn't have to worry so much. Because the rune research experience that Lockhart gave him, although not of great value, was very novel from his current perspective, and had great potential. It was enough to enter the Heritage Library once. Boom. Soon, Dumbledore saw the wall opposite the tapestry suddenly open, and a door came into view. He also stepped in, and his figure disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 103 Horcrux Routine. Defense against the Dark Arts Office. Lockhart sat at his desk, looking at the black notebook in front of him. Voldemort's Horcrux. The ball-eating bird cuckoo standing on his shoulder also turned his head curiously to look at it. Seeing this, Lockhart was worried about accidents, so he directly opened a portal and sent Cuckoo to Hagrid's cabin, asking him to take care of it. Then, he wrote, "Tom, I have been to the trophy display room. It seems that what you said before was true. Well, for the convenience of addressing, the notebook took the initiative to mention that he could be called Tom, and the original owner of the notebook was called Riddle." Soon, a line of text gradually appeared at the bottom of the notebook. "Of course, Professor Lockhart, according to the rules of the refiner, I can't tell lies." Seeing this, Lockhart continued to write without changing his expression. "Before, you said that you have the knowledge inheritance of Slytherin, and you still have the ability to learn and understand. Is this true?" A line of text quietly emerged below the question in the notebook. "Of course, Professor Lockhart, the notebook is related to Slytherin, the founder of Hogwarts, so I have the ability to learn and understand." Well, this explanation seems reasonable, Lockhart thought secretly. Then, after a few seconds of pause, the notebook asked back, "Professor Lockhart, is there anything I can do for you?" Seeing the question asked by the notebook, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly, and the fish took the bait. So he wrote directly without hesitation, "I need to test your ability. I will list 3 questions, and you answer them to test your knowledge reserve, learning and understanding. I will arrange something suitable for you later." As he said, Lockhart directly listed his 3 questions with a big stroke of his pen. 1. What is the core of the practice of apparition? 2. How many ways are there to improve the blood of wizards? 3. Talk about your understanding of ancient runes. Then, after thinking for a while, Lockhart added, "In recent days, you should have read a lot of my experience on runes. If you can, write about your feelings and the relationship between the two." As Lockhart wrote down the 3 questions, a line of text appeared on the notebook. "Professor Lockhart, because the notebook does not store enough energy, I cannot answer questions at length. In the case of extreme lack of energy, I will lose the ability to reply or even think. So I hope you can provide me with enough magic power, or you can sacrifice something else." Then, Lockhart saw the introduction on the notebook. "As long as it is an item with magic power, or a small living animal, it will be fine." Seeing this, Lockhart sighed slightly, but was not surprised at all. Voldemort, even if it is a fragment of a soul, is definitely not someone who can be fooled. How could he let go without seeing something? Sure enough, now he is asking for the sacrifice of magic power or vitality. If he really sacrifices his own magic power to him, the other party may use magic power to invade his body. Well, he remembered that Ginny seemed to be like this in the original book. So, bang, Lockhart took out a bottle of magic potion, placed it on top of the notebook, and then wrote, "I have a bottle of potion here, which was made by the top potion master Snape, and contains rich magic power. Do you want me to sprinkle it on the notebook? Well, it is impossible to provide your own magic power, and you must not sacrifice your vitality. After all, he did not forget that the notebook's resurrection seems to require vitality. In the original plot, if Harry Potter had not reacted in time, Ginny would have lost her life and become a sacrifice for Voldemort's resurrection. The notebook paused for more than 10 seconds, as if it was a bit painful and didn't know how to answer Lockhart's question. Then it wrote with some struggle, "Professor Lockhart, potions are also okay, but the absorption efficiency is a bit low. I'm afraid the required quantity is not small. Can you continue to provide me with a large amount of potions? It may cost a lot of gold galleons." Then, the notebook gave its own suggestions very carefully. In fact, Riddle has previously developed a very cost-effective method that does not consume much and can also provide notebook operation and open the soul illusion function. Then, without waiting for Lockhart's reply, it wrote directly. Riddle used to go to the Forbidden Forest every week to fight with some animals. On the one hand, it was to improve his combat experience. On the other hand, if he encountered some hostile and ferocious animals, he could use them as sacrifices for the notebook. Perhaps because he felt that these could not convince Lockhart, the notebook added another layer of weight. Slytherin seems to appreciate such behavior very much. The energy absorption efficiency after such sacrifice is very high. It only takes once a week to meet the operation of a week. Seeing that the notebook was trying hard to trick him into sacrificing his vitality, Lockhart became more and more vigilant. What you want, the less you get it. Then he adjusted his mood, as if he was a little disdainful of the notebook's previous mention of the need for gold galleons, and then wrote very proudly, "You don't need to worry about the potion. Professor Snape and I are good friends. He can make the potion I need at any time, and it doesn't cost many gold galleons. Well, it would definitely not hurt him to let Voldemort hate Snape. Then, after thinking about it, Voldemort might continue to need to do research carefully in the future, so it would be better to dangle the carrot." He added, "I have offended the centaurs before, so I can't go to the Forbidden Forest recently, but I can buy some experimental products later to replenish my energy. Well, this experimental product is very particular." He remembered that cockroaches and earthworms have tenacious vitality, right? After Lockhart stopped writing, 1 second, 2 seconds. After more than 10 seconds, a line of text appeared helplessly in the notebook. "Okay, Professor. Please provide a certain amount of magic power before I can answer your questions. The more difficult the questions are, the more thinking you need, and the more energy you consume. You will need to replenish your energy in time later." Then, according to the prompt of the notebook, Lockhart opened the potion and sprinkled it directly on the notebook. Looking at the notebook pages that had just been soaked, they disappeared quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving only dry pages. Lockhart couldn't help but secretly surprised. It seems that the notebook is very eager for magic power, and the absorption efficiency is not slow. In this case, should we suppress the notebook's absorption of magic power a little? Although doing so is inevitably a bit like Yang Baileo, asking people to work and not paying enough wages. But since the target is Voldemort, then there is no need to be polite. As his thoughts turned, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly. Soon, a bottle of potion was used up, and another line of text appeared on the notebook. "Professor, do you have any other magic potions?" Chapter 104, Invitation to Snape. Lockhart was not surprised to see the words asking for more on the notebook. After all, the other party had prepared well before, talking about energy absorption efficiency and Slytherin's reasons. However, he couldn't let the Horcrux succeed so easily. So he wrote bluntly, "This bottle of potion is enough to restore the magic power of an adult wizard. How much have you recovered now?" At the same time, Lockhart controlled his emotions and became very suspicious, and at the same time, all the reasons for his suspicion were revealed. He even thought that, if the notebook's answer was not satisfactory to him, or the cost was too high, he would seal it forever, in order to welcome a divine thought of absorption. After the divine thought of absorption disappeared, a line of text appeared on the notebook to explain. "Sorry, Professor, due to the low absorption efficiency, it may take 2 bottles of potion to replenish the energy. After the energy is full, it can run for about 2 or 3 weeks. Later, if other things are sacrificed to replenish energy, it will be further extended. Seeing the words on the notebook, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. These were all the bottom lines that emerged in his thoughts just now. Sure enough, the better the swimmer, the more Voldemort believed in his ability to absorb divine thoughts, the easier it was for him to deceive the other party. So, he wrote slowly, I can provide you with another bottle, but I hope you can give me a good answer. As he said, Lockhart took out a bottle of potion and poured it on the notebook. Soon, the potion was completely absorbed by the notebook. Lockhart quietly watched the notebook emerge with the answers to the 3 questions he raised. The core of apparition lies in the induction of space and the firmness of will. The improvement of wizard bloodline mainly depends on. Looking at the large amount of content that kept emerging on the notebook, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. As expected of Voldemort who inherited Slytherin, this level is quite impressive. Tuesday, Gryffindor Common Room. In the spacious common room, students sat on the sofa or chairs in groups of 3 or 2. Some were doing homework, some were reading books, and some were discussing with their good friends in a low voice. Among them, Hermione sat on the sofa next to her with a book in her arms and read with relish. Not far away, Ron and Harry were playing wizard chess with great interest. They were so happy. Suddenly, click, a flash of white light flashed with the sound of a flash and shutter. Colin Creevey, who was holding a camera next to him, took a picture of Harry Potter playing chess. Harry subconsciously raised his hand to cover it, but soon put it down helplessly. It had only been 3 weeks since the start of school, and he had been photographed dozens of times by this crazy photography enthusiast. The other party's admiration for him made him embarrassed to refuse, so he could only endure it. Colin, is there anything else? If not, I still want to play chess with Ron. Harry turned his head and said helplessly to Colin. Colin seemed to be unaware of Harry's helplessness and said excitedly, have you heard? Professor Lockhart's Battle Club will be recruiting members on Sunday. Do you want to join? What? Colin's topic immediately aroused Harry's interest, and Harry asked quickly, Colin, how did you know? I just saw it on the notice board. Colin was a little proud. It was posted not long ago, and I saw it. It said that the Battle Club will be held on Sunday. If you want to sign up, you can go to the prefect. On Friday, the first list of people joining the club will be given. Really? Ron asked reluctantly. His brother Percy was the prefect of the 5th grade. He was usually serious and always urged him to study and read. So he didn't like to communicate with Percy. Ron, let's go to Percy to sign up. After hearing this, Harry immediately thought of the prefect who was closest to him, Percy Weasley. Okay. Ron nodded and agreed awkwardly, talk to Hermione too. Soon, the 3 Gryffindors and Colin went to find Percy to sign up. During this period, Professor Lockhart's duel club spread throughout Hogwarts in just a few hours. All the little wizards would not reject the use of magic to fight. Especially the active Gryffindor and the Slytherin little wizards who pursue strength. They are the most excited. In addition, the defense against the dark arts classes that have been responsible for teaching little wizards to resist dangers in previous years have been very watered down. This year, Professor Lockhart finally came. His lectures are very interesting, and he also held a duel club. Instantly, the interest of many little wizards was ignited. By dinner time, most of the short stories were discussing the news about the duel club. Professor Lockhart once again became the focus of discussion among the little wizards. Well, the first time was because the local tyrant became the focus of discussion among the little wizards. Harry, do you think I have a chance to be selected? Hermione asked anxiously, looking at Harry who was eating dinner next to her. Don't worry, Hermione, you are so smart, you will definitely be selected. Harry comforted her from the side. However, Harry's comfort did not soothe Hermione's anxiety, and her uneasiness could still be seen from her face. She didn't even eat a few more bites of the food in front of her. She felt that she should read more books on duels, which might increase the chances of passing. At night, in Snape's office. Lockhart, what do you want? Snape looked indifferent, looking at Lockhart in front of him with a complicated look. But perhaps because of their trading relationship, his tone was slightly gentler. Seeing this, Lockhart said gently, Snape, I want to ask, when can the bottle of potion that can enhance blood be made? Snape roughly estimated and said, it may take 2 months. Then, he added, if you can provide 4 copies of blood similar to the accelerator before, the fastest time can be shortened to about half a month. Hearing this, Lockhart nodded and said, I understand. I will think of a way to see if I can get more blood later. Well, Spider-Man's blood, if we have a good chat, we should still be able to get it. If you have extra blood, I can also buy it. When it comes to blood, Snape can't help but say he hoped to have as many of these materials as possible. Generally speaking, the more precious the potion, the longer it takes to make it. Therefore, whether it is a method that can shorten the time or a material, every potion master has a strong demand for it. In response to Snape's request, Lockhart nodded and smiled. Don't worry, Snape, if I have any harvest next time, I will definitely give you a copy for free. Hearing this, the corners of Snape's mouth slightly pulled up. But, Snape, I hope you can do me a favor. Without waiting for Snape's reply, Lockhart continued, you should know that the headmaster asked me to hold a duel club, and I hope you can participate in it. In response to Lockhart's request, Snape stared at Lockhart's blue eyes. At the same time, his memory returned to the night 3 days ago. After a moment, okay, I promise you. Chapter 105 Snape is eager to try. 3 days ahead, it was Sunday night in the headmaster's office. Snape, who had received a message from Headmaster Dumbledore, walked to the gargoyle on the 8th floor. Sizzle, honeybee. Boom. As Snape's voice sounded, the gargoyle moved aside, revealing a staircase leading to the headmaster's office. Soon, Snape entered the headmaster's office and looked at Headmaster Dumbledore, who was sitting at the table, writing. Snape had no expression on his face and asked in a flat voice, Headmaster, what do you want me for? Snape's voice seemed to wake up Dumbledore. The old man put down his quill, looked up, and looked at the dean of his school. Dumbledore seemed accustomed to Snape's bland tone. He smiled and joked, Snape, I heard that you have been getting along well with the new Professor Lockhart recently. It seems that our Professor Lockhart is very good at making friends. Hearing Principal Dumbledore's joke, Snape frowned slightly and asked directly, Principal, is there something wrong with Lockhart? Then Dumbledore was stunned to find that Snape was eager to try and said, if there is something wrong with Lockhart, I will catch him now. I believe that after a bottle of truth serum is taken, any secret can be told. Well, the magical relics in the hands of the other party must also be told. Hearing this, Dumbledore's face looked a little strange. He could sense that Snape was a little impatient. Did Lockhart offend Snape? Why did Snape seem to be more eager to catch Lockhart than himself? So he shook his head and said quickly, Snape, Lockhart is fine at the moment. I want to hear your evaluation of Lockhart first. Hearing this, Snape felt a little regretful. With the headmaster's order, he could rest assured and arrest Lockhart. He didn't have to worry about what the headmaster said. However, regarding the headmaster's question, Snape thought for a while and said, I don't know too much about Lockhart. But if you want me to evaluate, I can only say that Lockhart is a very generous person. Well, he is really generous. Last time he bought a banned potion, he spent thousands of gold galleons. This time, he got a lot of potion materials for free when he identified the materials. Not to mention that Lockhart later made an appointment for a batch of potions. It can be said that Snape made a lot of money through Lockhart. Hearing Snape's evaluation, Dumbledore was a little amused. Generous? What on earth did this Lockhart do? It actually made Snape evaluate him as generous. So he asked with some curiosity, generous, what do you mean? Snape thought about it and felt that it would be better not to bring up the fact that he was selling banned potions. So he said in a deep voice, I don't know much about Lockhart, but I often hear many students in Slytherin say that Lockhart rewards them with various snacks and magic items. But after thinking about it, he added casually, the reason why he came to me is to ask me to make some precious potions, and the price he paid is not low. So I think he is quite generous. In response, Dumbledore nodded slowly, indicating that he understood. He also guessed the reason why Lockhart came to Snape. Sure enough, it was for potions. Then, Snape was heard to ask directly, Principal, is this about Lockhart? Or is there something else I need to do? Dumbledore said with a smile, Snape, don't worry, there is nothing big this time. I heard before that you, Snape, have a good relationship with Lockhart. I want you to help me pay attention to his magic research and test his views on squibs, half-bloods, and pure-blood families. Principal, are you sure Lockhart is okay? Snape asked with a frown. If there is a problem, I personally suggest arresting him directly and giving him truth serum. Seeing that Dumbledore still shook his head, Snape asked curiously, Principal, before I test you, I need a reason. After thinking for a while, Dumbledore said in a deep voice, Lockhart is now conducting a magical research. If this research is successful, it will affect the entire wizarding world. So, I need to know his attitude towards half-bloods, purebloods, and squibs. Hearing this, Snape nodded slowly, and at the same time, felt a little curious about the magic research mentioned by Principal Dumbledore. After asking a few questions and hearing some introductions from Dumbledore, Snape's image of Lockhart changed greatly. As Snape and Dumbledore finished their conversation, Dumbledore looked at Snape's business as he left. He fell into deep thought. After entering the Heritage Library, he looked for traces of runes. To his surprise, there was no introduction in the library. So, he had to be cautious. It has been a tradition in the wizarding world, since ancient times, that we should be vigilant against unknown things. Because no one knows whether it is a delicious fruit or a man-eating demon. Time went back to Tuesday night, Snape's office. Lockhart was a little surprised to hear Snape's decisive agreement. Before he came, he had invited Phileas Flitwick, a wizard who had won many dueling competitions, to join the dueling club. To be honest, it took a lot of effort. After all, the dueling club was hosted by him, and Dean Flitwick could only participate as an assistant. Finally, considering that he was also a wizard from Ravenclaw, and that he agreed to some of Dean Flitwick's conditions, the other party officially decided to join the dueling club. Therefore, for Snape, who was always indifferent, Lockhart was prepared to spend a lot of effort to persuade him to join. Unexpectedly, the other party was so decisive. At this moment, Snape looked at the surprised Lockhart and directly put forward his own conditions. I need certain member screening rights and the right to choose the course content. Well, although he joined as an assistant, he must have all the rights he should have. Hearing Snape's conditions, Lockhart thought about it and nodded in agreement, because it seemed to be similar to the conditions proposed by Dean Flitwick. It seems that every dean has a heart for his own college. Snape, let me tell you that Dean Flitwick is also willing to join the dueling club. Our first dueling course will be held on Sunday. For the details, we professors can discuss further in the next few days. Hearing what Lockhart said, Snape thought about it and found that it had no effect, so he nodded and said he knew. Seeing this, Lockhart smiled faintly, and after chatting for a few words, he said goodbye. He walked out of Snape's office and strolled in the corridor of Hogwarts. Lockhart was a little excited and found that, although his plan had some twists and turns, it was going smoothly. Originally, he held the duel club to get some resources from Hogwarts. But with Professor McGonagall's very strict review, and he opened up a new source of income, he completely gave up this idea. But he wanted to make the duel club bigger, and it would be best if all the famous professors in the school could be invited, and it would be best if Dumbledore could join in. On the one hand, it can provide better teaching quality for young wizards. On the other hand, he now hopes that the club can serve as a hub for him to have intense discussions with these top masters in various fields of Hogwarts on magic and runes. Well, in fact, Lockhart has not forgotten the original idea to create a working people's club. Chapter 106. The 4 deans are all in the bag. Sunday, Duel Club. The sunlight shines through the glass, making the spacious hall-like classroom even brighter. Near the walls of the classroom, there are some human-shaped alchemical puppets. The bookshelves are not filled with books, but with a large number of bottles and jars of potions. A large number of young wizards are discussing fiercely and lively around a long platform in the middle. Last year, there was no dueling class in Professor Quirrell's course, but it seems that we have finally got it this year. I'm really looking forward to Professor Lockhart teaching us how to duel. Who said it wasn't? I heard from my parents that generally speaking, it is the professor of defense against the dark arts who hosts the class, but the professor of defense against the dark arts changes every year, so the dueling class is sometimes held and sometimes not. I hope Professor Lockhart can stay longer this year and break the curse. Have you heard? Professor Lockhart will have a fierce duel with other professors today. Really? With which professor? I think any professor will do, as long as it's not Professor Snape. Actually, I think Professor Snape will do, and I kind of expect him to be defeated by Professor Lockhart. Now that you mention it, it seems pretty good. At this time, Harry stood in front of the podium, stretched his neck as high as he could, and looked into the depths of the podium with some expectation. The other little wizards were the same. They all heard that this time's duel class would not only have Professor Lockhart, but other professors would also participate. There was even a wonderful duel between professors waiting for them. It was a gimmick that instantly ignited their excitement. Suddenly, bang, 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 all the little wizards looked up and watched the colorful magic fireworks blooming above the classroom and exclaimed in a low voice. The next moment, Lockhart appeared silently on the podium, and next to Lockhart were the 4 deans of the academy. Seeing the surprised expressions of all the little wizards, a smile appeared on his face. Reaching down and pressing down, the little wizard's exclamations began to decrease. Lockhart held the wand and pointed at his neck. His voice was loud. With a flash of light, Lockhart's voice spread throughout the classroom. What is a duel? A duel is different from a fight. Fighting symbolizes a struggle between life and death, while a duel symbolizes civilization and progress. The purpose of a duel is to stay away from death and to protect yourself. Welcome everyone to join the Duel Club. Here, we will help you understand the mysteries of dueling, and will also teach you how to protect yourself and refuse death. Lockhart walked in front of the 4 professors and introduced them to the young wizards. I believe everyone is familiar with the teacher who teaches you how to duel. That's your dean. Each of them is a master of dueling. As he spoke, Lockhart gently pointed to Ravenclaw Dean Phileas Flitwick, raised his voice, and introduced. Dean Flitwick won multiple duel championships when he was young. It took me a lot of effort to convince him to come and teach you. As he spoke, Lockhart blinked at the young wizards, as if to imply how rare this opportunity was. Wow, Professor Flitwick is so amazing. The young wizards also exclaimed in cooperation. Phileas Flitwick heard the exclamations of the little wizards. Although he was small, he still smiled. Then, Lockhart continued to introduce, of course, our Slytherin Dean. When he was young, he lurked among the Dark Wizards and made great contributions to defeating the Dark Lord. He has rich experience in dueling and knows the methods of Dark Wizards very well. If you want to know how Dark Wizards fight, then Professor Snape will definitely feast your eyes. Hearing Lockhart's praise, especially seeing the admiring expressions of some little wizards below, Snape's originally indifferent face also rose a stiff smile. Well, originally he felt a little dissatisfied with Lockhart's pursuit of a sense of ritual, but seeing some little wizards admiring him, he still felt a sense of pride in his heart. Then, Lockhart began to praise Professor McGonagall's rich experience in fighting against dark wizards and her superb transfiguration. And Professor Sprout praised her air, clever and magical use of magical plants to fight. Lockhart invited these 2 professors after Flitwick and Snape. He was going to catch all the professors of Hogwarts in one fell swoop, so he tried to include all the 4 deans. Professor McGonagall was easy to talk to. She was a little reluctant at first, but when she heard that it was Dumbledore's request, she chose to join directly. As for Professor Sprout, Lockhart easily convinced her when he said that all 3 deans had joined the dueling club. Therefore, all 4 deans of Hogwarts entered Lockhart's dueling club. As for how to make these deans work together for the cause of the new magic system, Lockhart had planned it for a long time. Looking at the expressions of surprise and admiration of the little wizards, even the always serious McGonagall and the indifferent Snape smiled. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. Unless you are extraordinary, no one can refuse the compliments of others, and compliments are more likely to make people feel good and make it easier for these professors to integrate into the dueling club, especially when their students praise and admire them. No professor can refuse. After introducing the 4 deans and waiting for the little wizards to lower their voices, Lockhart introduced himself. Everyone is familiar with the 4 professors. As for me, there is no need to say more. I will teach you my experience in dueling, such as spell use and timing. At the same time, I will also share some practical new spells. I believe that, after you learn them, your dueling ability will definitely be significantly improved. Lockhart simply introduced what he would teach everyone, and didn't say much. But what he didn't notice was that when Snape heard him say the new spell, he looked at him with a look that was obviously wrong. It was as if he was looking at a scourge. At this moment, the little wizards below had already started to discuss in a low voice. However, Harry's expression was obviously wrong. He hated Snape from the bottom of his heart. But today, he heard Professor Lockhart's praise for Snape, especially when he mentioned the Dark Lord who killed his parents. And Professor Snape made a lot of contributions in it. By this calculation, Snape has become his benefactor? Such a thought made him feel extremely awkward. However, soon, his attention was attracted by Professor Lockhart's next words. In order to give everyone a better understanding of dueling, I will duel with Odin, so that everyone can see what a duel is. As he said, Lockhart invited the 4 professors. I wonder which professor I will be lucky enough to have a real duel with. Just after Lockhart finished speaking, Snape spoke first within a few seconds. Professor Lockhart, I'll do it. Chapter 107, Sealed Ring. Hearing Snape's quick answer, Lockhart was a little surprised, but he didn't think much about it. He nodded and said with a smile, okay, I also want to see Professor Snape's methods. At the same time, Lockhart and Snape walked to the middle of the platform, and McGonagall and other 3 professors also began to walk to the bottom of the platform. The little wizards below stared with wide eyes, looking forward to the wonderful duel between the 2 professors. Lockhart and Snape were one step apart. They raised their wands face to face, and bowed slightly according to the etiquette of dueling. At the same time, they put down their wands, turned around and walked back, walked 5 steps in a row, and turned around. Looking at Snape, who was indifferent on the opposite side, Lockhart's eyes rose with caution, and at the same time shouted loudly, 3, 2, 1 start. Expelliarmus. Armor protection. As soon as the voice fell, Snape loudly and quickly recited the spell. A dazzling red light flashed, and flew quickly in front of Lockhart. At the same time, Lockhart turned his wand and quickly released an armor spell. A white light flashed, and a magic barrier quickly emerged, which deflected Snape's spells. Bright and brilliant. Expelliarmus. Petrify all. Seeing Snape's spells being deflected, Lockhart lightly raised his wand, and the bright spell emitted a dazzling white light to cover Snape's sight. At the same time, he also cast several disarming spells to counterattack. Although Snape subconsciously squinted his eyes because of the dazzling white light, he reacted very quickly and cast several petrification spells on Lockhart according to the position he remembered, while dodging sideways. Seeing this, Lockhart subconsciously turned sideways, and 3 dim glows passed by him. All this took only 2 or 3 seconds. Snape attacked first, while Lockhart defended and counterattacked. The little wizards below saw such a scene on the podium, and subconsciously held their breath. They saw the 2 professors each casting spells, and dodging at a very fast speed. Although they could not see clearly in the middle, because of the flashing white light, they still felt a little shocked. Because the 2 professors began to cast a large number of spells again, and the colorful spell lights were in their eyes. But, although Snape had been in the academy for nearly 10 years, he was uneasy about the future, and had not given up his exploration of fighting. As Lockhart cast several offensive spells, he was too lazy to cast defensive spells. He dodged sideways, and attacked with attacks at the same time. Crushing spells, disarming spells, petrifying spells, all kinds of spells kept flying around, cutting through the air, and making sharp whistles. While casting spells, the 2 kept moving their position slightly to avoid spells. Faced with a large number of offensive spells coming at him, Lockhart could not help but slow down the speed of casting spells while dodging. With a slight sigh, Snape was once worthy of being a dark wizard with rich combat experience. This pure attack really caught people off guard. Then he quickly increased the speed of casting spells. Break into pieces. Imprison. Expel your weapons. Petrify all. A large number of spells were shot at Snape as Lockhart kept waving his wand. Snape, on the other hand, cast more spells and quickly counterattacked. Bang, bang, bang. In the eyes of the little wizard, accompanied by a series of rapid explosions, a large number of red, black, grey, and white spell lights flashed alternately. A large number of spells cancelled each other out, but at the same time, some spells were shot at the two professors. However, the professors took light steps and dodged quickly. At this time, Lockhart's heart sank slightly. He sighed that Snape was indeed a dark wizard with rich combat experience. He was currently suppressed by Professor Snape's large number of spells, and was at a disadvantage. Sure enough, he had only traveled through time for a few months. Although he had been training continuously, he was not as good as the battle-hardened wizard. But he was not too worried. He had prepared early, and waved the ring in his hand, made a strange gesture, aimed at the spell in the air, and gently stretched out his hand to press. Sealing ring. Click, click, click. In an instant, accompanied by a sound like a broken mirror, a red flame-colored halo suddenly appeared. It encircled all the spells and quickly squeezed towards the middle. All the little wizards stared with wide eyes, seeing that the large number of spells released by Professor Snape were controlled, imprisoned, and gathered into a ball of light. Then, as Lockhart waved his hand, he controlled the sealing ring, and rushed directly towards Professor Snape with a large number of spells. Surprise flashed in Snape's eyes at this scene. He had never seen such a spell. However, he had no time to think deeply. Facing the large number of spells coming at him, he kept casting various defensive spells to resist the attack. Just as a large number of spells and defensive spells collided with each other to produce a dazzling white light, Lockhart took this opportunity to gently shake his right hand, and a long red flame-colored magic rope quietly appeared. Then he quickly rushed towards Snape. The two deans, McGonagall and Flitwick, who were standing not far away, were also somewhat surprised to see this scene. In their memories, whether it was the spells cast by Lockhart or his fighting behavior, they were all very unfamiliar. Every battle was fought with a wand. As a result, Lockhart seemed to give up the most advantageous wand in his hand, holding a long rope gathered by magic power, as if he was going to fight Snape in close combat. At this time, Snape, after resisting a large number of spells in a somewhat embarrassing manner, saw Lockhart holding the magic long rope, and was a little confused. But with his keen intuition, he felt the breath of danger. God's Edge without shadow. He waved his wand vigorously and subconsciously cast his most convenient offensive spell. In an instant, a transparent sharp blade attacked Lockhart. Lockhart was naturally prepared long ago. He quickly swiped the hanging ring, and a circular portal suddenly appeared. Opposite the portal was the Forbidden Forest lawn, which swallowed up the God's Edge without shadow, and then disappeared immediately. Lockhart did not stop his attack. After the portal disappeared, he immediately waved the magic rope in his hand, and tied Snape's right hand holding the wand. Then Lockhart controlled the magic rope to dissipate, smiled at Snape, bowed slightly, and put away the wand in his hand. Seeing this, Snape's face was dark, but he also bowed slightly to Lockhart according to the rules. However, the look he gave Lockhart was a little inquiring. He had heard from Headmaster Dumbledore that he should pay more attention to Lockhart's magic research before, and now he had seen his magic achievements that were different from ordinary spells. The other party's casting method and spell form just now were obviously different from the known spells. And the other party actually wanted to fight him in close combat, which was quite beyond his expectation. At this time, Lockhart was also full of luck in his heart. If he fought Snape simply through the spells of the Harry Potter world, he would definitely lose. After all, Snape had been with the Dark Lord before, and had experienced countless battles, but he was directly at a disadvantage just now. If it weren't for the magic of Kamar-Taj and Snape's unfamiliarity with him, he would have won the duel. Well, the fighting method just now was actually borrowed from the previous battle with Cassilis. How Cassilis won him, and how he won Snape. Chapter 108 Harry and Malfoy Duel. At this moment, the young wizards looked at the two professors who bowed to each other with awe. In their eyes, Professor Snape, although he lost the duel, just now he waved his wand, and released a large number of spells like raindrops. This scene was unforgettable for them. And Professor Lockhart, who just turned the tide, and changed the situation through magical spells, made them even more amazed. I didn't expect Professor Snape to be so powerful. Ron showed a surprised look on his face. So many spells just now. How much magic power must have been consumed? When he thought of his current casting speed, he envied the professor's smooth casting. Professor Lockhart is the best, Hermione retorted directly. She is now Professor Lockhart's little fangirl. Harry didn't say anything. The battle between the two professors just now made him feel excited. He wished he could replace Professor Lockhart and defeat Snape fiercely. Although he knew that, if he faced Professor Snape, he might not even be able to stop the opponent's first round of attack. But he couldn't resist the excitement in his heart. Snape's face was gloomy at this time. He came down from the high platform without saying a word. In the fight between the two men just now, because of the presence of the little wizards below, they all restrained their own methods. At the beginning, they all used the most common spells to attack. However, Lockhart, a wizard who did not follow the ethics of wizards, actually cast other spells, and they were all some that he had never seen before, which led to his accidental defeat. Well, he actually cast the magic of the invisible, but it was a pity that it was blocked. He was quite curious about the two spells that Lockhart had just cast, especially the last spell that engulfed his magic of the invisible, which surprised him. Since it can engulf his spell, can other types of spells also engulf him, such as Avada Kedavra? It is worthy of being a magic research that Dumbledore pays attention to. It seems that there are many tricks in it. I need to pay more attention to it. Lockhart naturally did not know what was in Snape's mind. If he knew, he would be even more happy. The reason why he performed the magic of Kamar-Taj in public was, on the one hand, because he could only take the enemy by surprise, in order to fight against the internal forces. On the other hand, it was to arouse the curiosity of the four deans. He deliberately showed new magic, new ways of casting spells, and even new ways of fighting. He didn't believe that the deans who had been immersed in the field of magic for so long would not be interested. As long as they were interested, Lockhart would be sure to lead them to the Ship of Runes. With his mind turning, Lockhart gathered his thoughts and listened to the heated discussions of the little wizards below. He stretched out his hand and pressed it down slightly towards them, signaling for silence. Soon, the little wizard lowered his voice, and Lockhart said, "There are many things you need to master in the duel just now. For example, the speed, timing, pace, defensive means, combat awareness, etc. These, in the future duel courses, we will gradually teach you. I believe that, as long as you undergo persistent training, you will definitely make significant progress." Hearing this, the little wizards who were attracted by the wonderful duel just now nodded one after another. They all expected that in the future they could wave their wands like the professor, cast a large number of spells easily and wantonly, and defeat the enemy. Looking at the excited expressions of the young wizards, Lockhart smiled and nodded slightly, and then continued to say, "Professor Snape and I just performed a high-quality duel. Now, I wonder which young wizards are willing to go on stage and show everyone the spells they have mastered." Hearing what Professor Lockhart said, the young wizards below looked at each other and hesitated. Many of them have no dueling experience at all. Dueling should have been taught in the Defense Against the Dark Arts course. But who made the Defense Against the Dark Arts professors in previous years too watery? One was worse than the other. Last year's Professor Quirrell was even more terrible. He didn't even teach dueling seriously. If they really go on stage, I'm afraid they will be embarrassed. Lockhart saw everyone's expressions and knew what everyone was worried about, so he said to Harry, who was standing below and hesitant, "Harry, do you want to come up and try it?" Harry hesitated for a moment when he heard Professor Lockhart's invitation, then nodded quickly. "Okay, Professor." Then, Harry walked up to the podium and stood next to Lockhart. Lockhart patted Harry's shoulder affectionately and continued to say to the audience, "Which other little wizards are willing to come up?" At this moment, Snape said in a somewhat cold tone, "Malfoy, you go up." "Yes, Professor." Malfoy responded quickly. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded and motioned Harry and Malfoy to walk to the middle of the podium. Malfoy was now standing with his dean, and the two of them were whispering to each other, and no one knew what they were talking about. After seeing this, Harry thought about it, turned his head, and asked Professor Lockhart, "Professor, can you show me the disarming charm again?" Regarding Harry's question, Lockhart thought about it and shook his head. Harry was a little disappointed, but then he heard Professor Lockhart's explanation. Harry, I know what you're thinking. If you just want to practice the disarming spell, I won't refuse your request. But now, it's probably difficult to defeat Malfoy with the disarming spell. In a duel, the most important thing is to fight in the way you are best at, and not to fight in areas you are not good at. If you use an unfamiliar disarming spell, it's better to use the stunning spell I taught you before. Hearing Professor Lockhart's last reminder, Harry nodded thoughtfully and didn't say anything more. Instead, he picked up his wand, feeling a little eager to try. Soon, Malfoy left Snape with a bit of excitement on his face and came to the center of the podium, looking at Harry Potter with pride. He said to Professor Lockhart, "Professor, can we start?" Lockhart glanced at Harry and saw that Harry nodded, indicating that he was ready. So he reminded, "You can start." As he said that, Lockhart left the podium and walked to Professor Snape, watching the battle with some curiosity. Harry and Malfoy imitated the two professors just now, standing face to face. They raised their wands at the same time, bowed slightly, turned around, and took 5 steps in a row. Then they turned around, clenched their wands in their hands, and stared at each other closely. 3, 2, 1, go. As Lockhart shouted loudly, the two raised their wands at the same time and pointed them at each other. Expelliarmus. Stupefy. Malfoy cast a disarming spell at Harry, and Harry cast a stunning spell on him at the same time. 2 red lights emerged from the tip of the wand and shot at each other. However, perhaps due to the lack of combat experience of the two spells did not hit their targets. They fell on the distant wall one after another. Stupefy. Stiff legs. Seeing this, the two Malfoy began to cast another spell, and Harry seemed to have listened to Professor Lockhart's words. He continued to cast the stunning spell he had practiced for a long time. This time, if Malfoy had not dodged in time, Harry's spell would have almost hit the opponent. Malfoy's spell still missed its target, and Harry took a step to the left and dodged the spell. This made Malfoy a little angry, but he seemed to have thought of something. Holding the wand, he shouted at Harry, "Oolong out of the hole." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Luxurious Duel Class. With a loud shout from Malfoy, the wand in his hand suddenly exploded. A black smoke quickly spread out from the tip of the wand, and then quickly turned into a long black snake. Boom. With a sound, the black snake landed on the high platform, dragging its body, approaching Harry. When he saw this unfamiliar spell, a trace of panic flashed in his eyes, but then he thought of something. Harry clenched his wand, pointed it at the black snake approaching him, and shouted in a hurried and loud tone, "Stoop. Stoop, stoop." The tip of the wand in Harry's hand suddenly lit up with several red lights, shooting towards the black snake. Bang, bang, bang. Harry hit the black snake with one stunning spell after another. The black snake's pace of swimming forward was completely disrupted, and it even retreated a few steps back. Seeing this, Harry became more and more excited, and then continued to cast the stunning spell that he was best at. Faint, faint. A large amount of red magic light continued to hit the black snake, and the black snake howled in pain, dodged quickly, and retreated. But there were still many coma spells that hit the black snake, causing it to gradually disappear. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. It seems that Harry has taken his previous hints to heart. Well, he stole a glance at Snape's expression, and found that his face was even gloomier, and his body seemed to be emitting a cold breath. The little wizards below praised Harry one after another. At this moment, Malfoy saw that his trump card seemed to be ineffective. Then, as if he had thought of something, he held the magic wand and shouted again, "Oolong out of the hole." This is also, he poured all his magic power into it, trying to release the maximum power. This time, the black smoke emerging from the magic wand was deeper and larger. The black smoke fell to the ground, forming no longer a black snake, but a big python. The python was very manic, raised its head, bared its fangs, and took an attacking posture towards Harry. This time, Harry released a large number of stunning spells again, and a large amount of magic red light once again hit the python transformed by the spell. Unfortunately, this time, it did not cause much damage to it, as if it had angered the python. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The python roared angrily at Harry and the little wizards around, as if it wanted to attack everyone nearby. Suddenly, Malfoy's face changed. He found that the magic seemed to be out of control, and he could not effectively control the python transformed by the spell. The python began to show signs of attacking the little wizards around. At this time, Lockhart and Snape also seemed to find that Malfoy had lost control of the spell. They all raised their wands, ready to stop the potential risks brought by the python. However, the next second, hiss, a creepy voice came. Although it was like the cry of a python, it clearly revealed an evil and weird breath, which was creepy. The two professors stared at the source of the sound at the same time. Harry Potter. After hearing Harry Potter's voice, the python kept shaking and twisting its body, as if it had cramps. Then it quickly lay on the ground, as if it had restrained its desire to attack. Sealing ring. Although he knew what was going on, Lockhart still cast a spell, and turned the spell into a halo to trap the python. Looking at the light ball floating in the air, he stretched out his hand, and grabbed it hard. In an instant, the python turned into black mist again, and then quickly dissipated. Seeing this scene, Harry smiled. He thought that he had just stopped the python from attacking the little wizards, and made a significant contribution to Lockhart's elimination of the python. However, he soon found that something was wrong with the situation, and the whole classroom suddenly became quiet. Everyone looked at him with a strange look, or fear. This made Harry a little at a loss. As the little wizards began to whisper, especially some people pointed at him, Harry felt a little wronged, and felt cold all over. Let's thank Harry for stopping the python's attack just now. Lockhart looked at the bewildered Harry and the little wizards who were pointing and complaining, and instantly understood everything. So he hurriedly walked up to the podium, raised Harry's right hand, and praised the little wizards loudly. Because Harry Potter controlled the python's attack in time, and made a contribution to sealing the python. For this, Gryffindor gets 20 points. Lockhart's rescue immediately made Harry feel better. At the same time, the students of Gryffindor College also began to cheer slowly. However, there were only a few people, which was enough to show the fear that Harry's performance just now brought to them. Then, Harry heard Professor Lockhart whisper in his ear, "Harry, if you have time in the evening, come to my office. I have something to discuss with you." As he said, Lockhart patted Harry on the shoulder, and motioned him to go down the stage. When Harry walked down the podium, the crowd automatically gave way to both sides, and Ron and Hermione hurriedly came up, forcibly dragged Harry to the corner of the classroom, and discussed something in a low voice. However, the place where Harry was still avoided by the surrounding young wizards. Seeing this, Lockhart used his wand to give himself a loud sound, and then spoke loudly to the young wizards, trying to divert their attention. From the duel just now, we can learn two things. First, don't overuse spells that you can't control. Lockhart smiled at Malfoy below and continued. Second, we should use the spells we are best at to fight the enemy, just like Harry just kept casting his best stunning spell. The effect is very good. It is worth learning from. Finally, let's applaud for this wonderful duel. Lockhart took the lead in clapping his palms, and the young wizards below also applauded. Soon, most of the young wizards' attention shifted to the duel. Seeing this, Lockhart took advantage of the victory and introduced directly, the dueling course will be taught by our 5 professors. After our discussion, the time of the dueling course will be set at 8 PM every Wednesday. During this period, I will teach you some of my unique new fighting skills and spells. Professor McGonagall will teach you how to have a wonderful duel through transfiguration. Professor Snape will teach you some classic fighting spells. Professor Flitwick. Lockhart's lectures have their own unique characteristics. He likes to use his wand to outline exquisite patterns and words from time to time to mobilize the attention and emotions of the little wizards. Therefore, as Lockhart talked about the information of the dueling course, all the little wizards listened attentively. Well, under Lockhart's introduction, this dueling course will be an unprecedented luxurious configuration in Hogwarts. The 4 deans taught how to duel, advanced spells, Powerful fighting skills, novel casting methods, etc. were all handed over to the little wizards. After listening to Lockhart's chicken soup, the young wizards were immediately excited. It seemed that after the class, they would become professors with rich combat experience. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction, feeling that his skill in drawing cakes was still as good as before. But what he didn't notice was that Snape's eyes looked at him more and more dangerously. Well, it had nothing to do with Lockhart's rescue of Harry Potter. It was purely because he heard Lockhart emphasize that he wanted to share new spells. Chapter 110. Snape's views on the new magic. Before the class officially starts, we must understand what a duel is. Lockhart stood on the podium, waved his wand lightly, and the word duel appeared in the air. The young wizards below stared at him intently, and Lockhart talked freely. The duel among wizards is a tradition with a long history. The original duel contained blood and barbarism, but as time went on, it gradually became an important means of civilization and maintenance. When two wizards or two wizard families have a dispute, in order not to hurt the lives of innocent people and reduce unnecessary losses, duels become a substitute. As he spoke, Lockhart waved his wand and outlined a scene in the air where two teams of wizards each sent one person to bow and duel with each other. In addition, when facing love and pursuing witches, duels also become a way to show personal charm. At this point, Lockhart blinked his eyes and a mischievous smile appeared on his face. Waving his wand lightly, the pattern in the air turned into a picture of the winner enjoying the worship of the witches around him after the duel between the two. Seeing the thoughtful looks in the young wizard's eyes, Lockhart continued, dueling has evolved over history and has become a convention. Watching Lockhart's comprehensive and detailed explanation of the history of dueling, coupled with the patterns in the air, the young wizards occasionally exclaimed in surprise. The four deans nodded secretly. They found that Lockhart's lectures were indeed unique. During Lockhart's lecture, Professor Flitwick asked Professor McGonagall, "Minerva, do you remember the spell Lockhart used just now?" McGonagall thought for a moment, shook her head, and said lightly, "This is the first time I've seen such a spell. The magic fluctuations are different from what we see in daily life. It may be ancient magic. I don't know much about this." After hearing this, Flitwick seemed to be thinking about something, and then asked Snape, "Snape, you just fought with Lockhart. How powerful do you think his spells are?" "It's quite powerful." Snape squinted his eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. After a moment, he added coldly, "Obviously, his spells require another way of fighting." Then he said sarcastically, "I really can't imagine that as an elegant wizard. He actually needs to fight in close combat." Professor Flitwick did not respond, but changed the subject. "Professor Snape, what are you going to talk about with the little wizards later?" Lockhart suggested that I could talk about some classic cases of his own duels, saying that it could guide the little wizard's interest in duels. "I will tell you some cases of fighting against dark wizards." Snape thought for a moment, and continued to add, "At the same time, tell them how not to make mistakes in duels." "What about you, Professor Sprout?" Professor Flitwick asked. "I can go up and talk about how to use magical plants to fight," Professor Sprout replied with a smile. Then, the four deans chatted with each other. According to the previous communication with Lockhart, the duel club will let each professor teach his duel method and duel concept. In this way, strive to let each little wizard see different duel concepts, find a duel method that suits him, and improve combat experience. This concept is a bit similar to teaching students in accordance with their aptitude, and the professors are quite in favor of it. Well, they feel that the little wizards in their college will choose themselves 80%, and it will be convenient to give them a special treatment at that time. Among them, Professor Lockhart proposed to hold a duel competition every month, and he would pay for the prizes. The four deans quite agreed with this. It is naturally great that their students not only have college points, but also magical item rewards. The most important thing is that they don't have to pay 4 gold galleons themselves. As time passed quietly, the four deans heard Lockhart speaking on the stage. "I will stop here for the history of duels. Next, please invite Professor McGonagall to talk about her duel philosophy." Professor McGonagall has studied the transfiguration spell for many years, and has defeated many powerful dark wizards through the exquisite transfiguration spell. Hearing Lockhart's praise, McGonagall's serious face smiled, and then she also walked up to the stage and talked about her dual philosophy. Below, Lockhart and the remaining 3 deans also began to chat. Professor Flitwick, how are the young wizards of Ravenclaw doing this year? When I was in school, there were quite a few geniuses. Haha, Lockhart, are you reminding me that you were also a genius back then? However, several young wizards in this class are doing well. Professor Sprout, I really troubled you last time. I don't know how to take care of these unknown magical plants. Lockhart, they are all small things. Thank you for the magical plants and magic skincare products you gave me. I like them very much. Lockhart simply joked with the 2 professors and then excused himself. He found Professor Snape standing next to him, looked at him in a black robe, and exuded a cold breath like a big bat, and asked in a low voice, Snape, have you got any results for the information I asked you to find out last time? Snape glanced at Lockhart and said lightly, the latest auction of Dark Wizards will be held around next Tuesday night. I have an invitation. If you want to go, I can take you there. Hearing this, Lockhart nodded quickly and praised with joy, Snape, you have a lot of connections. Some things can only be found at top auctions. Then, Lockhart continued to promise, next time, I will definitely bring you a portion of the blood you want. Hearing this, Snape nodded with satisfaction and then asked tentatively, Lockhart, what's the point of the spell you cast just now? From the fluctuations in magic power I felt, it seems to be quite different from the spells we usually cast. As soon as Lockhart heard it, he knew that Snape was interested, and then, he introduced it with some temptation. Snape, this is a spell based on runes. The power of the spell is not weak, and it consumes less energy than spells of the same level. Because it is based on runes, as long as you know the runes in advance, the threshold for learning will be greatly reduced. After hearing Lockhart's introduction, Snape nodded secretly. Sure enough, what Principal Dumbledore said was right. If Lockhart's research is promoted, it will definitely cause a huge sensation. In the duel with Lockhart just now, he felt the special nature of Lockhart's spell casting. Generally speaking, they rely on emotions to cast spells, drive will, and resonate magic. And when Lockhart cast a spell, he keenly felt that during the casting process, Lockhart had almost no big emotional fluctuations. Very calm, natural, and the casting was very smooth. What does this mean? Snape, who has been influenced by black magic for many years, knows it deeply. Many wizards pursue the power of black magic, but the fundamental reason for their rejection is that the more black magic they cast, the more likely they are to be infected by the emotions of black magic and step into the path of evil. He once went astray because of this, and later he woke up. Therefore, even if many wizards learn black magic, they dare not learn too much, or even dare not use it many times, for fear of too many negative effects, which will kill themselves, and then the gain will outweigh the loss. If you use black magic, you will no longer be eroded by the negative effects of emotions. When you think of this, to be honest, Snape's heart is a little moved. His previous research on black magic is not exaggerated. A large number of wizards pursue it unscrupulously and use powerful black magic. Such a picture appeared in his mind, and Snape was a little chilled. Of course, this is just his guess, so he still needs to keep an eye on Lockhart. Chapter 111 Harry, you have to live for yourself. P.S. Chapter 20 is over. Please support me, readers. Please order first. This will directly determine the performance and recommendation of this book. Please help me. In a corner of the classroom, Harry, who had just finished the duel, was forcibly pulled into a corner by Ron and Hermione. What's going on? Why are you so weird? Harry asked at a loss when he thought of everyone subconsciously staying away from him. Harry, you are a Parseltongue. Why didn't you tell us? Ron asked worriedly. Well, because Lockhart disrupted the plot. The duel club was not only held in advance, but also the fuse of everything. Voldemort's Horcrux was imprisoned, so naturally the basilisk could not be triggered. And Ron and Hermione, of course, didn't know that Harry was a Parseltongue. What? Harry was suddenly stunned by Ron's worried tone and asked hesitantly, what is Parseltongue? Then, he kept explaining, I just communicated with the big black snake and asked him to stop attacking. You should have seen that the black python did not attack anyone under my communication. Just now, Professor Lockhart awarded Gryffindor credits for this. Hermione, who was beside him, saw Harry in a daze and said comfortingly, "Harry, don't worry, there won't be any big problems. It's just that your expression and voice when you spoke just now are creepy and look very evil. As if you were giving him an order." At this point, Hermione recalled the hissing sound Harry made just now, which seemed very strange and full of evil, and she shuddered subconsciously. Hearing Hermione's comfort, Harry felt a little more comfortable. However, thinking of what Professor Lockhart said just now, he decided to go to Lockhart's office at night to answer his doubts. Later, Harry saw people around him avoiding him, but he didn't say much. He stayed in the corner and listened to the professor's lectures on the podium. But Harry was still a little absent-minded and didn't listen carefully to the professor's lectures. From time to time, he whispered to Ron, "What exactly is Parseltongue?" At night, in Lockhart's office, Lockhart looked at a pile of fan letters in front of him, cast a magic, and controlled the quill to automatically reply with some standard thanks. Then he signed his name and put it aside. Unlike the original body's habit, the original body liked to reply to every fan letter seriously and then send it back by owl. Because the original body liked to see all kinds of admiring words in the fan letters and enjoyed the fun. But the current Lockhart is different. He feels that most of these fan letters are a waste of his time and consume his life. Therefore, he specializes in studying a magic and thinks of some more polite or standard words in advance. Every time a fan letter comes, he will basically reply with similar words, then sign his name and send it back by owl according to the original body's habit, reducing the waste of time. Well, actually, it was the robot replies on the major apps in the previous life. Despite this, Lockhart was also working on reducing the frequency of replies as much as possible. He was preparing to find a suitable time to completely stop replying to letters. He had just finished replying to the latest batch of fan letters. Suddenly, dong, dong, dong. "Professor, it's me." Lockhart heard a familiar voice and replied, "Come in, Harry, the door is not locked." Click. Harry Potter heard the professor's voice and pushed the door open. This was his first time entering Professor Lockhart's office. As soon as he entered, he found that the most conspicuous thing was a huge piece of parchment pasted on the wall, on which were engraved a large number of runes that seemed very mysterious and complex. It was like a map, with different colors and shapes for each area, and each had its own name. Although he couldn't understand it, he had a sense of awe. In fact, these were all kinds of runes that Lockhart studied. He classified the runes and ancient runes he studied according to their properties, and engraved them on the parchment on the wall. It seemed to be showing off his achievements. Every time he was tired of research, he would look up and see the large amount of results he had studied, and he would be very satisfied. Soon, he would be full of motivation to continue to study new spells and new runes. As for leaks, he hoped that someone would be interested in runes. Let's not talk about it first. Can anyone study something based on a list of runes similar to a catalog? Even if they really study it. Now he is equivalent to mastering the most advanced magic technology in the entire Harry Potter world. Everyone who wants to develop in runes or new magic systems can only choose to contact him, and he will reasonably absorb all the essence with an equal and free attitude. Well, this is the routine he learned from a certain country in his previous life. When Harry entered the middle of the office, he saw a large bookshelf against the side wall. It was filled with a large number of magic books of different colors, like a small library. "Harry, come and sit down." Looking at Harry Potter observing his office, Lockhart smiled, waved to him, and motioned him to sit at his desk. Harry came back to his senses, looked at Professor Lockhart and gestured, sat down on the stool quickly, and asked in a somewhat restrained manner, "Professor, what do you want me for?" At this moment, Harry was very nervous, for fear that the professor would mention the matter of Parseltongue. Regarding Parseltongue, Ron gave a class, and the more he listened, the more he felt a little scared and panicked. "Harry, you have the talent of Parseltongue." After hearing this, Harry Potter's heart jumped violently, and he said in a somewhat excited tone, "Professor, I'm not a dark wizard, I swear, I have nothing to do with them." Seeing Harry's very excited emotions, he was even a little incoherent. "Harry, calm down." Lockhart poured a glass of water with his wand, placed it in front of Harry, and said soothingly, "No one said you are a dark wizard. Selmath is not a symbol of dark wizards. Don't be led astray by others." Hearing Lockhart's professor's comfort, Harry's mood slowly recovered. After a moment, he asked doubtfully, "Professor, is it true? I heard Ron say that Parseltongue is a symbol of dark wizards, and Slytherin is a Parseltongue, which is very evil." Hearing this, Lockhart raised his eyebrows and said in a flat and slow tone, "Do you believe what he said?" "Ron wouldn't lie to me," Harry said hesitantly, and everyone's reaction. "Harry, putting aside all prejudices, do you feel that today's actions are helping people or harming people?" "I stopped the big black snake from attacking and didn't hurt anyone." Harry hesitated at first, but became more and more fluent as he spoke. "I'm helping everyone." "Yes, Harry, you are helping everyone." Lockhart praised Harry. "We should not deny ourselves because of prejudice." "You are doing good things," Lockhart said heavily. "I'm doing good things." Harry muttered to himself. "Yes, you are doing good things. Talent is like the wand in your hand. You can cast spells to save lives, but you can also kill lives at the same time. It all depends on you, not on the opinions of others. Now, tell me, are you willing to be a person who helps others?" Lockhart's final question made Harry's eyes brighter, and he nodded heavily. I do. "Then don't worry about what others think." Lockhart nodded slightly and said meaningfully, "Harry, remember, you have to live for yourself, not for the opinions of others." At the same time, the ring in Lockhart's hand flashed a faint light, and then there was no movement. Chapter 112, Parseltongue, Magic Bracelet. Live for yourself. Hearing what Professor Lockhart said, Harry muttered to himself. His eyes became brighter and brighter, and his whole body was trembling slightly. Lockhart looked at this scene, nodded gently, and encouraged, "Harry, you have to understand that in the wizarding world, there are only a handful of people with magical talents, and those with Parseltongue are even rarer. You have a magical talent that others don't have, which will make it easier for you to achieve accomplishments in magic." "Really, Professor?" Hearing the professor say this, Harry's eyes flashed with excitement. "Of course," Lockhart affirmed without hesitation. "Do you know why I asked you to come to my office?" "Why, Professor?" Harry couldn't help asking. "Because I don't want to see a genius go astray because of the prejudice of others," Lockhart fooled decisively. Then explained, "I know a little wizard with great magical talent. He was because of some initial prejudices. Finally stepped into the path of dark magic, and finally made himself crazy and worse than death." Thinking of the scene described by Lockhart, and then putting himself in it, Harry suddenly shuddered all over. Seeing Harry's reaction, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly. Well, the case he cited was Voldemort, and he had a copy of Voldemort's Horcrux that was still in school age. In general, there was nothing wrong with this case. Looking at the frightened Harry, Lockhart continued to encourage, "So, Harry, don't be afraid, don't waste your talent in vain. You have to believe that your talent will give you a surprise in the future." Well, it was indeed a surprise, a big surprise. Hearing Professor Lockhart's encouragement, Harry nodded vigorously, and the previous nervousness and uneasiness in his heart were swept away, replaced by a kind of excitement. "Harry, there is something I need your help with." Lockhart looked at Harry and said with a smile, "Harry." Seeing Harry's puzzled expression, Lockhart whispered, "I want to learn your Parseltongue." "Ah." Hearing Lockhart's request, Harry felt dizzy. He had heard Ron say before how evil his Parseltongue talent was, and it was a symbol of dark wizards. Before entering the office, he was full of disgust for his talent. If he could get rid of his Parseltongue talent, he would pay any price. Now, with the encouragement of Professor Lockhart, he was not so averse to the Parseltongue talent. But it still felt incredible that someone was willing to learn Parseltongue. Or maybe the amount of information was a bit too much, making him a little dizzy, and his brain couldn't react. Seeing Harry was a little confused, Lockhart smiled slightly, waved his wand lightly, and a magic bracelet floated in front of Harry. "Harry, I told you not to underestimate your talent. The talent of Parseltongue is extremely rare in the entire wizarding world, and it has great research value. It just so happens that I'm doing some magic research. I guess the magical language of Parseltongue should be of great help. So, I need your help." Hearing what Professor Lockhart said, Harry nodded subconsciously and then kept staring at the magic bracelet floating in front of him. This bracelet, the whole body glowed with a faint silver light, and some emerald green magic gems were inlaid on the bracelet. On the silver white metal surface of the bracelet, a line of tiny runes was engraved. It looks very delicate, full of mystery and noble atmosphere. Seeing the expectation in Harry's eyes, Lockhart smiled and said, "Harry, as a professor, how can I let a little wizard work for nothing? This is a gift from me to you. At the same time, I will teach you some spells I have studied later. Help you develop your talent well." Hearing this, Harry nodded, his eyes full of excitement. He quickly took the magic bracelet in his hand and gently rubbed it with his fingers to feel its delicate touch. Looking at Harry's movements, Lockhart introduced softly, "Harry, I believe you will like this magic bracelet very much. It can increase the power of spells and improve your strength. Most importantly, it can increase your mental strength and improve your learning efficiency. Through the magic bracelet, after special training, you will soon be able to perfectly control the Parseltongue talent. I believe this will be very helpful to you." Thank you, Professor." Hearing Lockhart's introduction, Harry said with gratitude. Although he was enlightened by Professor Lockhart, he was not as repulsive to the Parseltongue talent as before. But if he could control Parseltongue freely, it would be even better. Soon, under Lockhart's gaze, Harry put the silver white magic bracelet on his hand and played with it repeatedly. Looking at Harry's expression, he didn't say much. After all, he was still a little wizard. It was normal to be happy to receive a beautiful gift. Ahem. After a while, seeing the joy on Harry's face slowly fade away, Lockhart coughed lightly. Looking at Harry, who had come back to his senses, he smiled and said, "Okay, Harry, let's study your Parseltongue." As he said that, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and a red dictionary floated over from the bookshelf and was placed in front of the two. Lockhart opened the dictionary, pointed to the word on page 1, and said to Harry with some expectation, "Harry, try to translate this word in Parseltongue." However, this process didn't seem to be easy. Harry looked at the list of words in the dictionary, his face turned red, but he couldn't say a word. "Professor, I can't do it." After a while, Harry raised his head helplessly, with a trace of apology on his face, and said to Professor Lockhart, "Professor, I want to say it, but I don't know how to start." As he said that, he subconsciously touched his bracelet, fearing that Professor Lockhart would take the bracelet back. Lockhart didn't pay attention to Harry's actions. After thinking for a moment, he comforted Harry and said, "Harry, don't worry. Maybe you are not proficient in the Parseltongue talent, or lack direct stimulation. Well, you use the activation magic bracelet to increase your spirit and try again." As he said that, Lockhart waved his wand and cast a spell on the dictionary. The effect of the spell is very simple. That is, when people read the dictionary, they will feel that they are facing a snake's face. Well, he suddenly had some evil thoughts. If a spell is cast on the dictionary, Harry will see Voldemort's noseless snake face. Will it directly stimulate the Parseltongue talent? He shook his head slightly, gathered his thoughts, and focused on Harry's actions. Harry, who had just activated the magic bracelet, suddenly felt a cold feeling rising in his brain. Then, Harry felt that the scene in front of him changed, and everything around him became extremely clear, as if he could even see the traces of dust floating in the air. At the same time, he could keenly feel the friction between his clothes and his skin, as well as the delicateness of the magic bracelet and the cold touch it brought. He could even vaguely feel the huge magic fluctuations emitted by Professor Lockhart. He inexplicably felt that he was in control. Harry quickly shook his head and focused his attention on the dictionary in front of him. A series of words quickly emerged in his mind, and at the same time, a snake's face appeared in his mind. But he did not panic at all, but was very calm. He quickly scanned the first word on page 1 and tried to translate it, but found that he could not touch his talent at all. Then he quickly passed by and looked directly at the words below. Hiss. Soon, a hoarse, gloomy, weird, and evil voice sounded in Lockhart's ears. Thanks to Dullahan Keoli for 3000 points, Giant Bookworm number 1 for 1000 points, Aishikshangai for 100 points, Kyan Kyojishis Isafanha for 200 points, Zuihudinxiang for 100 points, Wilas Ujiu for 100 points. Thanks to Famings Hong, QWE79, Let Me Swim in the Sea of Books and other readers for their monthly votes. Too many monthly votes. Thank you all for your support, and thank you in a separate chapter later. Chapter 113 Absolute Reason, Dumbledore's Headache. Harry, I'll stop here today. Come to my office on Wednesday night. We'll continue our research. When the time comes, remember to take your notebook and wand. I'll teach you some practical spells. Lockhart touched Harry's head, cancelled the magic supply to the bracelet, and said gently, "Okay, Professor." After the bracelet lost the professor's magic, Harry suddenly felt that the whole world was blurry. It was like the clarity dropped from 4K to the level of ordinary clarity. This made him feel a little unsatisfied and reluctant to leave, but he still nodded heavily. The feeling of calmness and control brought by the magic bracelet before made him a little addicted. However, the extreme calm state consumed a lot of magic power, and he couldn't bear it after persisting for more than 10 seconds. Later, it was Professor Lockhart who provided sufficient magic power for the bracelet in order to better study the Parseltongue, allowing him to enter a relatively calm state again. He decided to follow the professor's advice and usually only open the most ordinary calm states to learn or practice spells, and at most open the relatively calm state. As for the ultimate calmness, Harry said, although the ultimate state is very cool, it only lasts for a dozen seconds. Just try it occasionally. Trying too much will hurt your body. Well, in fact, the magic bracelet originated from the spell invented by Lockhart, Absolute Rationality. This is a spell specially developed by Lockhart for magic research. It is because of this spell that he can ensure that he is always in a state of efficient research. In order to make efficient use of this spell, he refined magic items according to the principle of the spell. The one Harry wears on his hand is a regular version. Although the refined magic metal is a bit precious, it is not expensive. He refined a top version for himself, which is the necklace hanging around his neck. A lot of Yoru metal is used in it, extracted from the remains of the destroyer armor. Usually, only a small amount of magic power is needed to ensure that he enters a relatively calm and rational state. When he conducts key magic research, infuse magic power, and activate the necklace, he will enter an absolutely rational state. In the state of absolute rationality, the mind is very sensitive, the computing ability will be greatly enhanced, and it will not be affected by distracting thoughts, as if combining the rationality of the robot with the sensibility of the human brain. The only disadvantage is that it consumes a lot of mental energy, and he can only use it at critical moments. Usually, he has been using the normal state for magic research. In fact, he found that, when he entered the state of absolute rationality at a high frequency, his emotions would gradually fade, as if he had adapted to the state of rationality. This is why he emphasized that Harry could just turn on the normal state at ordinary times, and the extreme calm state, although not as good as absolute rationality, should be used as low frequency as possible. After all, he is still young. What if Gryffinder's manic temper turns into Ravenclaw's quiet temper? He is worried that Dumbledore will come directly to his door. Well, thinking about it this way, it seems not bad. Shaking his head slightly, Lockhart gathered his thoughts and looked at Harry's back. This time the chat can be said to be very smooth. The rhythm of the chat is completely under his control. I have to praise the genius of the original body, the light of the spell fanaticism and research. Every time the original body attended a fan meeting, he would deliberately cast this spell to guide the fans' enthusiasm and subtly enhance the fans' admiration for him. As for the effect, you can see that the original body has been popular for so many years and has earned tens of thousands of gold galleons. And he made some modifications on the basis and turned it into implanting beliefs. In short, it is to subtly implant some of your own ideas and beliefs into the other party's mind. Let the other party accept your communication content as quickly as possible. It can be said that this is a necessary spell for communication. The premise is that it will not be discovered. This is why this communication went so smoothly. Well, now Harry believes in what Lockhart said. Of course, the effect of this spell varies from person to person. If he really recognizes this concept from the bottom of his heart, it is very easy to implant beliefs. But as long as there is resistance, not only will more magic power be consumed, but it will also be very easy to be discovered. This is also the disadvantage of this spell. A professor like Snape who knows brain occlusion may have just cast it, and the other party will come with a sharp and invisible force. Lockhart said, there are thousands of spells, but the target is very important. If the spell is not cast properly, the wizard will shed tears. Well, the reason for deciding to teach Harry this time is, on the one hand, because the talent of Parseltongue is rare. As mentioned before, it has great research value. On the other hand, it is for Dumbledore. In the past few days, he has communicated with him more or less, and found that Dumbledore is a little stubborn. This forced him to change a new strategy. If Harry, who he is most concerned about, learns new magic, Lockhart doesn't believe that Dumbledore can sit by and watch. What? We have to study it. Don't you think so? Hogwarts, the principal's office. Snape stared at the old man sitting in front of the desk. Although he was full of white hair, his blue eyes under the half-moon mirror were still bright. Principal, Harry is a Parseltongue. Snape said heavily. I remember that the Dark Lord is also. Really? Snape. Dumbledore frowned, but didn't say anything else. But Snape obviously wanted to know more, and asked, Headmaster, what do you know? It may be due to Harry's counterattack. Dumbledore rubbed his brows, and said with some distress, it should be the backlash of the killing curse, that allowed Harry to obtain Tom's talent. Really? A trace of doubt flashed across Snape's face, but after thinking about it, this was the only possibility. Otherwise, how could the child born by Lily and that stupid lion have the blood of Slytherin? The blood of the two has nothing to do with Slytherin. You know, the Gaunt family with the closest bloodline has perished, and the only known person with the talent of Parseltongue is the Dark Lord. Although Snape wanted to continue asking, seeing Dumbledore's distressed expression, he knew that he would not get any answer. So he continued to say to Headmaster Dumbledore, Headmaster, about Lockhart's magic research. I found that the magic he cast today, in addition to what you said, has another obvious difference. That is, it does not rely on emotions. Hearing Snape's performance in the duel with Lockhart today, and the special features of the new magic, Dumbledore frowned even deeper. Originally, he thought that Lockhart's magic would increase the number of wizards and cause chaos. But now after hearing Snape's discovery, he found that he might have underestimated the magic that Lockhart was studying. That's right, without formally participating in his magic research, it is impossible for him to know that the magic that Lockhart was studying had such an effect through a research record. It could actually reduce the negative effects of black magic. Fortunately, Snape, who has been studying black magic for many years, discovered it in time. Otherwise he might still be unaware. He can imagine that some older mortals or wizards who crave powerful strength, who were originally worried that their souls would be damaged, did not dare to study the mysterious black magic in depth. After all, there are many cases of studying black magic and going crazy in the end. And now, we have found a way to reduce the impact of dark magic, and even study, learn, and perform it without damage. It would be strange if we don't study it to death. It is difficult for any wizard to avoid the temptation of performing powerful magic without damage. Especially Tom. If he knew this, he would be more eager than anyone else. When he thought of this, Dumbledore felt a headache. He was getting more and more worried about Lockhart's research on magic. He has a good talent, but he must not go astray. Originally, he just wanted to observe from the side and guide from the side. After all, Tom's affairs were the most important. But now it seems that, if he doesn't get involved, things may get out of control. P.S. Thank you for your support. The current average subscription is more than 800. If it reaches 1000 today, one more chapter will be added, for a total of 5 chapters. Welcome everyone to join the group and discuss Lockhart's various operations to transform the wizarding world in the group. Chapter 114, Promotion of the New Magic System. At night, Tom, how is your research on the rune version of the splitting spell? Lockhart wrote on Voldemort's Horcrux notebook, I have developed a rune version of the crushing spell. The effect is good. The magic power consumption is reduced by 30%, and the mental power consumption only needs one half of the original. As Lockhart wrote, he exuded dissatisfaction and disdain. It was as if he felt that, if the notebook did not give any results, it would be a waste. Soon, a line of text appeared on the black notebook. Professor Lockhart, the rune version of the splitting spell has been studied. I have experimented hundreds of times in the soul illusion space, and there is absolutely no problem. Seeing the Horcrux prompting the so-called soul illusion space again, Lockhart seemed not to see it and wrote directly, "Send me the information, I'll take a look first." As he said that, he poured half a bottle of ink on the notebook. When the ink touched the notebook, it was like rainwater flowing into the dry earth, and it disappeared almost at the speed of the naked eye. There was no trace of ink on the entire page of the notebook. But then, a large amount of text appeared on the notebook. The handwriting was clear, and looked very comfortable, as if an elegant noble wrote a poem. The new version of the splitting spell is based on the 68th rune, splitting, effect. While maintaining the power, the magic power consumption is reduced by about 20%. The mental power consumption is reduced by 50%, and it does not require too strong destructive emotions. Casting method. Outline the splitting rune. Disadvantages. Need to outline the rune. Beginners cast spells slowly and easily fail. Looking at the large amount of research records in the notebook, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. Although the notebook's research speed is not as fast as his, it is barely acceptable. He is currently working on a magic project, which is to select the most commonly used spells in the fields of life, combat, treatment, etc. that a wizard often uses. Then, research magic with similar effects. According to Lockhart's plan, he wants to promote a new magic system. It's like two softwares occupying the market in the previous life. The current situation is that one software basically unifies the entire market, and if the software he developed wants to break through the siege, there are two things that must be done. The first point, and the most important one, is that the new magic system must have its highlights and occupy the minds of wizards. Just like in the previous life, a certain dang benchmarked a certain treasure, relying on the positioning of genuine products to break through the siege. Lockhart had been prepared for this. The magic in the Harry Potter world has certain requirements for magic blood. This can be seen from the names of pure blood, half-blood, and squibs. Generally speaking, the purer the magic blood, the better the magic talent and the faster the practice speed. If the magic blood is too low, it means that the magic talent is extremely poor. Just like a squib, it simply cannot cast a spell, or like some ordinary wizards, it can only cast some relatively general spells. Those who need a little more mental power or magic power cannot cast it. Forcing it to cast may even be life-threatening. The most important thing about the new magic system is that its learning threshold is very low, it is easy to master, and it does not completely require blood power. In other words, as long as you practice hard, you will have the opportunity to master advanced magic in the future. As for the shortcomings mentioned by Tom, the wizards in the Marvel world have already solved them long ago. Lockhart can take them and modify them to apply them to the wizards in the Harry Potter world. As for the second point, it is to reduce the replacement cost of wizards as much as possible, or to let wizards quickly get used to and adapt to the new magic system. After all, it is not difficult for you to let a wizard learn new magic. The difficulty is that you have to let many people abandon the magic they have learned before and choose their own magic. This is the real difficulty. Some wizards are obsessed with powerful magic. If you meet his needs, he will be very willing to learn. But most wizards, or ordinary wizards, have been surrounded by the daily life of firewood, rice, oil, salt, sauce and vinegar for a long time. It can be said that they have adapted and gotten used to it. If you suddenly change their spellcasting habits and spellcasting behaviors, there is no doubt that they will be greatly rejected, unless you force it through war or power. But given Lockhart's current strength, it is basically impossible to achieve. Therefore, the only way is to reduce the replacement cost of their spellcasting. That is what Lockhart is doing now, imitating the original magic system. Based on the runes, we can develop spells with the same effect, but we only need to highlight the lower consumption and emphasize its highlights. This is definitely worth learning for ordinary wizards. It's like new energy vehicles and fuel vehicles in the previous life. Most people are very realistic and use whichever saves money. What Lockhart has to do is to work in this direction. Well, as of now, most of the project has been completed. Among them, I have to give a thumbs up to Voldemort. He played a significant role in it, but it saved Lockhart a lot of time. However, it still needs to be adjusted from time to time. Otherwise, the other party will really give up. Thinking of this, Lockhart took out a bottle of magic potion to restore magic power and poured it on the notebook. After a while, the notebook absorbed all the potion. Seeing this scene, Lockhart was thoughtful. He now has about 10 bottles of potion poured into the notebook. Basically, when the other party studies 3 or 4 spells, Lockhart will pour a bottle to encourage him. However, the amount of 10 bottles is almost the magic power of 10 adult wizards. Among them, the Horcrux may produce a certain amount of consumption, but Lockhart is sure that it will not consume much. What Lockhart is more worried about is a Horcrux, which is an ungrateful wolf that can never be tamed. If the magic power reaches a certain standard and starts to backfire, it will be bad. In his previous life, he only knew that when the Horcrux absorbs enough vitality, it will sacrifice the host and start to revive. But Lockhart is not sure whether the magic power has a related effect. Thinking about it, he decided that he must find a way to consume it, otherwise it will be easy to rebel if it is too fat. Well, it is best to keep it in a half-dead state like before. How to consume it specifically? After thinking about it, Lockhart wrote in his notebook, Tom, prepare to open the soul illusion space. Horcrux. Merlin, Lockhart, the bastard who only knows how to exploit people, finally couldn't help but come in. If I don't find a chance to kill you this time, my efforts for so long will be in vain. After a pause, the Horcrux quickly replied, okay, Professor Lockhart. As he spoke, a dazzling white light poured out from the notebook, and Lockhart felt as if his body was being pulled, as if he would enter the notebook in the next second. Suddenly, bang, with a sound, the notebook was suddenly closed. After a few seconds, Lockhart opened the notebook again. Horcrux. The Horcrux was a little dazed and seemed to not understand Lockhart's actions and slowly typed a question mark. Then, a line of text appeared. Professor Lockhart, don't resist. I'm pulling you into the soul illusion space. After entering, you can practice spells without damage, do magic experiments, and you can also. Seeing all kinds of tempting words appearing on the notebook, Lockhart looked at it for more than 10 seconds, waiting for the notebook to no longer show any words, and then silently wrote, Tom, don't worry, I will use my own method to enter. Horcrux. The soul in the notebook didn't quite understand it, but it had a bad premonition. Then Lockhart leaned back in his chair, holding the ring, concentrating his mind, slightly closing his eyes, visualizing a mysterious, complex, and profound pattern in his mind, and his spirit suddenly jumped. Soul projection. PS. Thank you for your support. The average subscription has reached more than 900. If it reaches 1000 today, one more chapter will be added, for a total of 5 chapters. Chapter 115. The Soul Space of Voldemort's Horcrux. Lockhart's soul came out of his body, floating in the air like a ghost from Hogwarts. Turning around, Lockhart observed his body and office through the vision of his soul. Compared with the vision of the physical body, everything was brighter from the perspective of the soul, and even the magical fluctuations of various colors could be vaguely seen. To be precise, it was more like the energy particles described in the previous life. However, seeing his body and comparing it with his soul, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. There was no difference, which meant that there was no abnormality between his soul and body, and they fit perfectly. Then, looking at the faint purple gold light flashing on the surface of his body, a sense of enlightenment came to him. This was the soul shell, provided by the system. The golden light was the embodiment of the soul shell, and the purple light was the power of the contract of Vishanti. Under normal circumstances, the contract should be completely integrated with his soul, but the system intervened, blocked it from outside, and made Vishanti mistakenly believe that the contract was successfully signed. He got a big bargain for nothing, enjoying the power of Vishanti at no cost. In the Marvel world, he had been exposed to the power of Vishanti a lot during his usual practice. He usually borrowed as much as he could. In short, no money, no price, just borrow as much as he could. Well, he suddenly understood Ancient One's idea. TSK, as long as the other party can't collect the debt, it doesn't count. Since there is no debt, just relax and have fun. Thinking about it, Lockhart covered the purple gold light on his body. Then he set his target on the Horcrux notebook on the table, and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Whoosh! Lockhart's soul suddenly pounced on the notebook. In an instant, the whole soul entered the notebook. From the outside, Lockhart was leaning on the chair, his head tilted to the left, as if he was asleep. In front of him, there was a black notebook. As Lockhart entered the soul illusion space mentioned in the notebook Horcrux, the scene changed, and Lockhart noticed that the scene inside the Horcrux was a bit similar to Hogwarts. To be precise, it was similar to the lounge of Slytherin College. After a little thought, he nodded secretly. Voldemort split the Horcrux for the first time when he was 16 years old, in the 6th grade, and the sacrifice was Myrtle. In other words, what Voldemort remembers most at this moment is the place where he has been growing up, learning, and resting, Hogwarts. Of course, the place where he lives is the most familiar Slytherin College. You are Professor Lockhart. Perhaps it was because he found that Lockhart had entered the inner space of the Horcrux that Voldemort, or Tom, came to Lockhart quietly. At this moment, Tom was wearing a dark green wizard robe of Slytherin College. His face was a little immature, but very handsome. "Hello, Tom," Lockhart said with a smile. "Well, I'm very sorry to disrupt your plan." Tom looked at Professor Lockhart, who was wearing a emerald green wizard robe, with smooth blonde hair, and was very handsome, and was stunned on the spot. This was completely different from the picture he imagined, especially when he felt that his magic power seemed to be unable to erode Professor Lockhart in front of him. There was a shadow in his eyes, and he had a bad premonition in his heart. "Tom, let's go to the soul illusion space and see the effect you have been praising." Looking at Tom, who was stunned on the spot, Lockhart said calmly, but his tone was mixed with a hint of command, which was beyond doubt. "Professor, what is your current state?" Tom couldn't help asking. He felt that Lockhart's current state was a bit similar to a ghost, but it was definitely not. How could a ghost enter his Horcrux space? Besides, why did his magic seem to be unable to erode the other party? "As for me, I'm currently in the soul state." Lockhart did not forget his personality and said proudly, "This is a spell I developed, based on the runes before. It's called soul projection, which can make the soul leave the body and travel around the world." Hearing Lockhart's introduction, Tom's eyes lit up. The soul leaves the body and travels around the world. Just listen to this sentence. But this kind of spell is uncertain, and it can make oneself leave the notebook for a short time. Thinking of this, a bright smile appeared on Tom's face, and he complimented Professor Lockhart. "Professor Lockhart, you are indeed a rare genius in the world. This is the first time I have seen this kind of magic. This spell alone is enough to win a second-class Order of Merlin." Hearing Tom's compliment, Lockhart cooperated and showed a proud smile. But immediately, his expression changed, and he said in a calm tone, "Tom, no need to talk nonsense. Take me to see the soul illusion space you mentioned first. If the effect is good, some experiments will be placed in it in the future. At the same time, it will also be convenient to teach you some runes." At this point, Lockhart's tone revealed a hint of disdain. "After all, your previous research efficiency was not even 1/3 of mine." In this regard, Tom secretly complained, "If you were not evasive when asked about key knowledge, how could your efficiency be so low?" However, his face was still full of smiles, and he complimented, "Good professor, if I have a famous teacher like you to teach me, I believe that my efficiency will definitely improve rapidly." While complimenting, Tom secretly increased the erosion of Lockhart's magic. "Humph, wait until I turn you into a puppet, and then I will let you do research for me 24 hours a day. As long as the research efficiency is low, I will reward you with a heart-piercing blow. See if you still dislike low efficiency." Since Tom came into contact with Lockhart, he has understood the runes that the other party has mastered. He felt that the rune had infinite potential, and even his goal of immortality could not be separated from it. In particular, He felt that some runes had a slight help to his soul fragment, and he was even a little fanatical. Good stuff. Really good stuff. I really want to have it all by myself. Unfortunately, this bastard in front of him was hiding such precious knowledge from him. A trace of coldness flashed in Tom's eyes, but his face was full of smiles and his tone was gentle, showing his elegance when he was in school to the fullest. Professor, wait a minute. I will open the soul illusion space now. As he said, Tom waved his hand gently, and suddenly, the surrounding environment changed. Lockhart found himself in a hall, and the layout of the environment was a bit like the duel club he held. There was a high platform in the middle, and the walls were filled with various alchemical puppets and other materials. However, feeling the increase in the number of magic wrapped around him, a trace of ironic smile flashed across his face. Then, he didn't care at all and directly ordered, "Tom, introduce the function of the soul illusion." Tom cursed Lockhart's attitude in his heart, but when he thought that the other party had the knowledge he needed, he introduced very obediently, "Professor, in the soul illusion space, we can call up the corresponding scenes from our own memories. Then you can cast spells at will, or practice processing materials, refining potions, alchemical items, etc. As long as you have relevant memories and information, you can use it repeatedly. The only disadvantage is that it cannot simulate things beyond your cognition, and because it is a soul illusion, things that are successfully simulated may not be successfully replicated in the outside world. Despite this is also the best place to cultivate your own experience. Everyone is welcome to join the group and discuss Lockhart's various operations to reform the wizarding world in the group. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, The Curse of Death, Shield of Scala. After hearing Tom's introduction, Lockhart was thoughtful. In this way, this soul illusion space is really a good thing. If I can witness Snape's entire process of making potions with my own eyes, wouldn't it mean that I can repeatedly watch his potion making techniques, timing, material processing and other information? Or after experiencing a battle, I can repeatedly observe the enemy's various combat reactions and obtain a lot of key information. Or, as his thoughts turned, Lockhart thought of a lot of ideas. But the more he thought about it, the more he felt that the function of the Horcrux was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere in his memory. Hey, isn't this the world famous alchemical item in Harry Potter, the pensieve? In the previous life, I saw Dumbledore using it a lot in the plot. However, after hearing Tom's introduction, I found that there are still some differences. From the original plot, the pensieve can only choose to enter the memory. And the soul illusion space not only can enter the memory, but also change it. Specifically, it is to simulate the things that exist in various memories. It is convenient for you to practice and accumulate experience. However, Lockhart glanced and saw the expectation in Tom's eyes. A sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. If he let go of his memory completely and simulated it, wouldn't it be leaking information for no reason? He didn't think that Tom would just stand by and watch. He closed his eyes and began to think. He completely gave up the relevant memories of the Marvel world. In the Harry Potter world, valuable scenes. After a moment, Lockhart's eyes lit up, and he thought of a scene. He quickly selected the memory, split it, changed some details, and projected the picture in his mind into the soul space according to Tom's introduction. In an instant, Lockhart felt that a magical power was absorbing the memory he had just released, and even tried to obtain more information. With a cold snort, his mental power was cut off. He opened his eyes, stared at Tom with a cold gaze, and said in a cold tone, "Tom, I think you need to give me an explanation." As he spoke, a long whip of red flame appeared in Lockhart's hand, which was covered with dense barbs, and sparks came out from the tip, then fell to the ground, and disappeared in an instant. The whole whip seemed to be made of flames. It was Kamar-Taj's soul magic, soul whipping, which was specially used for combat magic in the state of soul projection. Snap! With a light shake and a swing, a loud whip sound spread throughout the space. Tom felt the creepy feeling brought by the long whip and took a step back with a solemn face. At the same time, a shield covered with a large number of ancient runes appeared quietly in front of him. "Professor, what happened?" Tom's tone was full of grievance. "Nothing. The main thing is to help you recognize the primary and secondary positions." Lockhart looked at the black shield opposite with an expressionless face. This battle was within his expectations. Voldemort is not Dumbledore. Dumbledore joined his magic research. With his personality, he would at most conceal some information and would not dig a pit in it. But the young Voldemort was different. He tried to dig a pit as much as possible, and he was completely based on the angle of killing himself or refining a puppet. For Dumbledore, due to the other party's strong strength and prestige, Lockhart could only plan in a side way, guide the other party to study the new magic system and endorse it. But for Voldemort, especially since the other party was just a soul fragment, he had nothing to fear. With the other party's character, if he didn't beat him well, who knows what kind of moth he wanted to make. And a battle is the best way to beat him, so that he knows who is the main and who is the secondary, and it is enough for him to calm down in a short time. The young Voldemort still has reason. When he should compromise, he will never die for the so-called dignity. Hearing Lockhart's cold tone, Tom's face became more and more ugly. The black shield disappeared quietly, and the wand he had been using since school gradually appeared in his hand. If it were in the real world, he couldn't do anything to Lockhart. But now in his soul space, he didn't believe that Lockhart could still turn the tables. Just take this opportunity to refine it into a puppet and return to the Chamber of Secrets resurrection. Lockhart looked at the wand in Tom's hand, curled his lips, and didn't say much. If he had met Voldemort in reality, he would have run away long ago. But if he was still afraid of a soul fragment, especially Voldemort in his youth, he would be ashamed of the magic he had studied for so long. As his thoughts turned, the surface of the soul body began to glow purple gold again. It was the soul shell, provided by the system. As a product of the system, although the focus is on the role of transferring contracts, the defense power it possesses is not weak. Otherwise how can it resist the contract? Tom felt the extremely high quality magic power emitted by the purple gold light, and he had an ominous premonition. Avada Kedavra. Tom raised the staff in his hand and waved it heavily at Lockhart. A green light lit up from the tip of the wand and shot towards Lockhart. When Lockhart heard the spell Tom recited, he trembled all over and quickly dodged sideways. Damn, what's going on? A soul fragment can actually cast the killing curse. Bang. The spell shot directly at the opposite wall and pierced through the entire wall. However, Lockhart's face became strange. He just felt that the killing curse Tom cast seemed a little different. It was a bit like a pure magic attack, not a Kedavra curse targeting the soul. You know, the reason why the Kedavra curse is considered one of the 3 unforgivable curses is because it is an attack specifically targeting the soul. After a little thought, it suddenly dawned on him. The opponent was just a soul fragment, and the magic power he had was provided by himself. Even the wand was virtual. How could he release the full version of the Kedavra curse? At most, it was simulated by magic, and only had a small part of the power. In this way, he really had nothing to worry about. Tom saw Lockhart dodge his attack, his face gloomy. He waved his wand continuously releasing the spells he was best at. Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra. Bang, bang, bang. Accompanied by a series of rapid explosions, a large number of pseudo-Kedavra curses with green light shot towards Lockhart. Seeing this, Lockhart waved his whip casually, and the long whip disappeared. His hands moved, outlining a perfect circle, and the magic surged, pulling outward from the middle. As Lockhart's magic flowed, red flame lines appeared in the air, combining into a circular rune with a very complex internal structure. The moment the rune was formed, a huge red flame shield appeared in front of Lockhart. Shield of Scala. Bang, bang, bang. A large number of killing curses hit the red flame shield of Scala, and sparks flew everywhere. Tom saw that the spells he cast had no effect, and his eyes flashed with disbelief. But then he changed, and a fierce look rose in his eyes. He kept waving his wand and madly aimed at Lockhart's pseudo-killing curse. Bang, bang, bang. A large number of spells kept hitting the Scala shield in front of Lockhart like raindrops. And Lockhart did not move. just standing there, as if watching a play, a little leisurely, and even enjoying the scene of Tom casting spells. Soon, with the impact of a large number of pseudo-killing curses, the shield was on the verge of breaking. Tom's eyes flashed with joy, and he continued to speed up the release. However, as the spells continued to be cast, Lockhart keenly discovered that the surrounding environment began to become a little illusory. Bang! The shield of Scala became increasingly dim, and finally, it shattered. Seeing this, Tom's mouth curled up slightly, and the scene of Lockhart being caught by him emerged in his mind. He was thinking about how to make Lockhart. However, sealing ring. PS. Thank you for your support. This morning I found that the average subscription finally reached 1000. Today I added one more chapter, a total of 5 chapters. Thank you one below all for 500 points of reward, Vandalu for 259 points of reward, Lululo guess 100 points of reward, and We Love Yuji for 106 points of reward. Thank you MayoIE, 1050, ZHU Shouting Elephant and other readers for voting for the monthly ticket. Chapter 117 Full-time worker in place. Lockhart's indifferent voice came from a distance. Tom's smile froze. He saw Lockhart stretch out his hand and make a strange gesture, and then a red flame ring suddenly appeared in the air, including the killing curse he released. Then, Lockhart stretched out his hand and pinched it, and the ring suddenly shrank, including the killing curse, to form a red flame mixed with green light ball. Feeling the powerful magic fluctuations emitted by the light ball, Tom's face was solemn. He didn't bother to cast the killing curse, and summoned the original black shield again to prepare for defense. Then, Lockhart's voice was heard from a distance. Tom, try this trick. Hearing the disdain in Lockhart's words, Tom's face was a little hideous. Although he was bullied a lot in the orphanage when he was a child, since he mastered magic and had a strong strength, who would dare to bully him like this? Lockhart saw the change in Tom's expression, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He can be said to be familiar with people like Tom. He had met such people in his previous life. It is indeed troublesome to deal with, but it can also be said to be easy. They are usually bullied a lot when they are young, and the unwillingness or pride in their hearts makes them ambitious since childhood. They are eager for strength, money, power, etc. When they have strength, they will retaliate against those who have bullied them. This is even more true when facing enemies. So it is difficult to deal with them, because such people have no so-called bottom line. But at the same time, when facing people who are stronger than themselves, they will choose to lie dormant and behave quite submissively. It's like the young Voldemort facing the middle-aged Dumbledore. Basically, he will avoid him if he can, and he will show special respect if he can't avoid him, and will not show his hostility at all. But once he is stronger than the other party, he will retaliate immediately. A typical born rebel. The thought turned, and the magic light ball transformed by the seal ring swayed slightly as Lockhart's fingertips moved. Seeing Tom's fully alert look, Lockhart smiled slightly and gently stroked Tom with his fingertips. In an instant, the magic light ball with red flames mixed with light green quickly shot towards the black shield. Boom. The magic spell light ball exploded in midair, and a large number of pseudo-killing spells rushed directly towards Tom. The runes on the black shield in front of Tom shone with dark green light, as if trying their best to resist the large number of spells coming towards them. Bang, bang, bang. A large number of pseudo-killing spells continued to hit the black shield like raindrops, and the sound of spells exploding and shields breaking continued to sound. It can be said that it completely reproduced the scene where Tom released a large number of spells to attack Lockhart just now. The only difference is that one shield is pitch black and the other is red flames. Feeling the huge pressure brought by a large number of spells and the feeling that the shield is on the verge of breaking, Tom's eyes flashed bitterness, and he quickly mobilized the reserved magic power to replenish it quickly. At this time, Lockhart was leisurely walking towards Tom's position, and the purple gold light on his body kept shining, resisting the erosion of the surrounding magic. Soon, the pseudo-killing spell was consumed, and the shield also seemed quite illusory. Or it can be said that the entire soul space is a little illusory. Only Tom at this moment is still very clear. Trample. 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 Tom, who had just used up a lot of magic power to successfully resist the attack of the spell, breathed a sigh of relief. But then, he heard the sound of Lockhart's footsteps, and his heart sank slightly. Tom looked at Lockhart, who was walking slowly, holding a long whip covered with thorns and red flames. He opened his right hand and the U-wand quietly emerged. Avada Kedavra. It was still the killing curse that he was best at. Bang. Lockhart looked at the pseudo-killing curse that was shooting at him, and directly waved the whip to break the spell. Seeing this scene, Tom was somewhat helpless. After all, the Horcrux was so small that he couldn't hide. Even if he wanted to, he could only continue to cast spells to block the opponent's forward steps. Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra. Bang, bang, bang. Lockhart walked while waving the long whip to break the pseudo-killing curse that was coming at him. Soon, he was about to walk in front of Tom. Without saying anything nonsense, he directly waved the long whip to break the wand in his hand. Swinging again, tying up Tom. Tom grunted, and the sharp barbs of the flame whip pierced his body. Although he was only a fragment of the soul, the whip was also made of pure magic power, and still caused some damage. Lockhart looked at the tied Tom, with a faint smile on his face. He walked up to him and said sarcastically, "Tom, do you know? When you mentioned that the notebook was made by Slytherin, I guessed that you were a dark magic item. Now I see that it is true." As he said, he seemed to have some emotion and said, "Slytherin, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, the world's top dark wizard, the items he made, even if they are the legacy methods. Who dares to believe that it is an ordinary magic item?" Having said this, Lockhart looked at Tom in front of him and continued to release misleading information. "You are a magical item that can think and research independently. Tell me, you can't lie." At this point, Lockhart deliberately showed a mocking smile. "Do you believe it? Do you dare to believe it?" Hearing Lockhart's series of sarcasm, Tom lowered his head dejectedly, as if Lockhart had said it right. However, the moment he lowered his head, his eyes lit up. He found that Lockhart only regarded him as a black magic item with independent thinking ability. He did not discover his true identity. "I'm very sorry, Professor Lockhart. I didn't mean to deceive you. I'm really worried that you will imprison me again. I don't want to stay in that dark space without light." At this point, Tom cooperated very well and trembled all over, revealing his worry and fear. As if he was really a magic item, imprisoned for many years, eager to see the light again. HMPH. Lockhart snorted coldly and said lightly, "I'm not interested in hearing your apology. Submit or die. You choose." As he spoke, Lockhart opened his right hand, and a light golden rune floated above his palm. Then he floated in front of Tom and introduced lightly, "This is the contract rune. If you surrender, you will take the initiative to integrate. If you don't want to, I will grant you death." As if he was worried that Tom would make a wrong choice, he continued to bait, "After surrendering, you have to do the same as before, and continue to be my research assistant. I will teach you some advanced knowledge of runes. If you dare to have other intentions, don't blame me for destroying you." Hearing what Lockhart said, Tom showed a hesitant expression on his face. But he was very excited in his heart. Good guy, there is always a way out. Originally thought that, even if he didn't die this time, there was no way to continue to learn the runes that Lockhart mastered. Unexpectedly, there is still such an opportunity, and he can even learn advanced knowledge of runes. As for the contract mentioned by Lockhart, Tom said, he is just a soul fragment, not the real body. Even if there is a contract, it can be broken later. With his peak strength, it is easy to crack these. Thinking about it, Tom looked at the contract rune in front of him with golden light, stretched out his hand and grabbed it, and merged it into his soul. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction and tempted, "Tom, believe me, the future you will definitely thank you for the choice you made now. As long as you are willing to work hard and make contributions, in the future, even if you want to have a human body and see the light again, it is not impossible." Chapter 118, Instilling New Ideas into Young Wizards. Defense against the Dark Arts Office. Tom, these 3 research projects are handed over to you. If you don't understand anything, take a look at my research notes. Lockhart wrote on the black notebook. Soon, a line of text appeared in the notebook, replying, "Okay, Professor." Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction and put the Horcrux notebook and his thick research notebook into the box again. From now on, the Horcrux that signed the contract will serve as his first full-time worker. With Voldemort's magical talent, Tom Lockhart believes that the other party will be his right-hand man. Hogwarts, second year defense against the dark arts teacher. The defense against the dark arts class is mainly to teach everyone how to protect themselves. And many people don't have a clear definition of the definition of protecting yourself. Lockhart stood on the podium, waving his wand, and two golden words floated in the air: protect yourself. Looking at the confused little lions and snakes below, Lockhart pointed his wand at Harry Potter, who was sitting in front of him. Harry, come and talk about how you understand protecting yourself. Harry was stunned for a moment, then quickly stood up, thought for a while, and said, Professor, I think protecting yourself means that when someone bullies me, I can fight back. Hearing the answer full of Gryffindor style, Lockhart stretched out his hand to signal him to sit down, and continued, what Harry said is not wrong. Many people understand that protecting themselves is to defeat their enemies, but this is far from enough. As he said, Lockhart pointed his wand at Malfoy and said, Malfoy, do you have any other understanding? Malfoy stood up and said directly, Professor, I think protecting yourself is actually to improve your strength. As long as you are strong, you are not afraid of any threats. This answer also has the style of Slytherin College. Lockhart nodded and said, there is nothing wrong with what Malfoy said, but we are talking about the definition of protection, not the method of protecting yourself. Anyone else? Do you have a different answer? Lockhart looked at the group of second year wizards below and asked. Most of the young wizards looked at each other and didn't reply. However, Hermione, tell me what you think. Looking at Hermione, who raised her hand high, Lockhart called out, Professor, I think protecting yourself can be divided into many situations. Hermione stood up and replied loudly, for example, when we are exploring, we must prepare in advance to prevent some unknown risks. This is protecting yourself. Also, when facing dangerous magical creatures, we must escape in time, which is also protecting ourselves. Hearing Hermione's answer, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction and praised, Hermione's example is good, very specific, and the answer idea is very correct. Gryffindor plus 5 points. Then he stretched out his hand to signal to sit down. Seeing Hermione sitting down with excitement, Lockhart said, protecting yourself, if we want to give a definition. According to my personal experience, it can be divided into 3 categories. They are protecting your own physical safety, protecting your own reputation safety, and protecting your own property safety. As Lockhart spoke, he waved his wand, and the 3 categories of words he mentioned floated in the air. Protecting your body is the most well-known way to protect yourself, as Harry said. Protecting your reputation is very important. Even people who are not famous need to pay attention to their reputation. At this point, Lockhart waved his wand, and a picture of a wizard being thrown rotten vegetable leaves by all the wizards around him floated in the air. He introduced, when a person's reputation is tarnished, even if you know it is false, people around you will not believe you. They will think you are a bad person, and insults, isolation, violence and other behaviors become the norm. Seeing the picture floating in the air, the little wizards around shuddered. Seeing this, Lockhart casually introduced a few words. Then he waved his wand again, and the picture changed, and a large number of gold galleons appeared. After seeing it, the little wizards exclaimed in a low voice. It was the first time they saw so many gold galleons. It is also very important to protect your own property. Think about it, if the gold galleons you have worked hard to save for most of your life are stolen by others, or you are cheated by others, what would you do? As he said, he waved the wand and the picture changed again. A wizard was starving and cold, living alone in a shabby hut. The little wizard trembled when he saw such a picture. It seemed that their gold galleons were stolen even if they didn't have a single gold galleon. Professor, how should we protect ourselves? A little girl from Gryffindor asked timidly. This is what I will teach you in the future. Lockhart waved his wand, and the picture above disappeared, and replaced it with the first 2 words, protect yourself. In the future, I will not only teach you how to avoid fighting, but also teach you to maintain your reputation, and protect your property. Now, which one do you want to hear first? As soon as Lockhart finished speaking, many little wizards shouted. But it was obvious that the last one, protecting property, had the loudest voice. It seems that the little wizards still care a lot about money. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded, stretched out his hand and pressed down, and saw that all the little wizards quieted down. Lockhart began to instill his own ideas subtly. Protecting your own property is a grand concept. First of all, we need to know how our currency gold galleon, sicko, cat and other properties were born. As he said, Lockhart waved his wand, and a golden gold galleon floated in the air. Golden galleons are made by goblins. Initially, goblins, as defeated warriors, served wizards. They signed contracts such as not being allowed to hold wands, so wizards at the time were very confident in them. And because of their small number, ancient wizards chose to delegate management rights to the goblins, who made gold galleons. Thanks to their miserly character, they managed very well at first. But as time went on, the overall strength of wizards began to weaken, while goblins grew stronger because of peace. Although they still abide by the contract, they began to demand, or to be more precise, expand their rights to wizard currencies such as gold galleons. Like Gringotts, it didn't exist originally, but later, gradually, goblins began to have more control over wizard currencies such as gold galleons, and even formulated certain currency rules. If we want to protect our property, in addition to preventing it from being robbed, we must also understand the currency rules. Lockhart taught according to his usual habit. He waved his wand while teaching, showing various pictures, analyzing the origin and current situation of wizard currency, as well as the idea of protecting one's own property. He subtly instilled the concept of goblins equals threat, defeating goblins equals gaining monetary sovereignty, etc. Since the little wizards were still young, they could not think deeply on their own like the wizards in the 5th and 6th grades. Therefore, Lockhart did not explain too deeply, but tried to attract all the little wizards with some interesting stories and pictures. But what he did not notice was that Dumbledore stood quietly outside the classroom, listened for a while, and then left quietly. Chapter 119, Philosopher's Stone, Words of Magic. In the morning, Hogwarts, the corridor on the 8th floor. Lockhart leisurely strolled along the corridor, looking at the tapestry of the giant beating the fool Barnabas with a stick in front of him. These days, while he was free, he explored the room of requirement in Hogwarts. He found that all the room scenes he imagined could indeed be transformed. However, he felt a little regretful. Lockhart once imagined a room full of various magic books, but after entering, he found that there were only a large number of bookshelves and no books. Although it was a bit regrettable, Lockhart also expressed his understanding. Some material things, such as bookshelves, tables, and even some simple alchemical puppets, can be simulated well by the room of requirement. But when it comes to some knowledge or technical items, such as books, potions, etc., there is no way to make wishes come true. If it can really be simulated, Lockhart thinks it is more appropriate to call it the wishing room. However, broad daylight is not the time to enter the room of requirement. He came to the corridor on the 8th floor today, mainly to go to the principal's office, to help Dumbledore complete his autobiography. Well, it was mainly to find out Dumbledore's attitude, and it had absolutely nothing to do with gossip about Dumbledore's youth. Dumbledore's gossip, when he thought of it, the flame of inquiry in Lockhart's heart burned fiercely. Chocolate ball. Lockhart skillfully said the command to the stone statue of the water drop beast in front of him, and with a boom, the stairs leading to the principal's office opened to him. Lockhart, come in directly, the door is not locked. Hearing the voice from above, Lockhart hurriedly responded, and then entered the principal's office. Principal, good morning. Lockhart saw Dumbledore, who had just put down his quill, and greeted him directly. Morning, Lockhart. Dumbledore nodded and responded, and began to seal the letter in his hand. With his sharp eyes, Lockhart saw the name of the recipient, Nicomel. Thinking, he remembered that Nicomel was the leading alchemist in the entire wizarding world, and his representative alchemy item was a philosopher's stone that extended life. Prolonging life is not difficult for Lockhart, who travels between two worlds. What he is most interested in is Nicomel's hundreds of years of alchemy experience. You know, in addition to spell research, he now spends most of his energy on alchemy. Naturally, he is full of curiosity about the master in the field of alchemy. Thinking about it, Lockhart probed as if chatting. Principal, you started writing letters so early. I can tell at a glance that it is your most precious friend. Dumbledore looked up and said jokingly, I delayed writing this letter for a whole week. I believe Nico will complain that I'm not a good friend if he knows what you said. Nico, Principal, could your friend be Master Nico Mel? Lockhart exclaimed in surprise. Of course. Dumbledore nodded and said gently, Nico and I have known each other for nearly 100 years. Lockhart nodded and said with some envy, I also want to have an alchemist master as a good friend like you. If I can communicate with a top master like Nico Mel at any time, I believe my alchemy level will make rapid progress. Don't underestimate yourself, Lockhart. Dumbledore joked, I have seen your alchemy magic works before. Using runes and ancient runes to refine magic items is your personal creation. I believe that if it is written into a paper, it will definitely be selected for the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is the top journal about alchemy in the wizarding world. It is named after the Philosopher's Stone, the ideal creation of alchemists for thousands of years, and the Philosopher's Stone is its imitation. In contrast, the top journal of spells the Word of Magic, the top journal of potions the Golden Crucible and so on. Hearing Dumbledore's praise, Lockhart smiled faintly and said modestly, you are too kind, Headmaster. I just hope that my paper on runes can be successfully published in the magic word. Oh. Lockhart's words seemed to surprise Dumbledore, and then he wished him well. Then I hope I can see your paper in the latest issue of the magic word. Lockhart also said expectantly, I also hope to see my name in the next month's The Magic Word. Well, I'm afraid I'll have to wait until the next time I travel back to the world of Harry Potter to see it. But even if his paper is not in the magic word, he is not in a hurry. When he was doing research, he wrote a lot of related papers, and finally sorted them out and basically submitted more or less papers to major top journals. And the topics are different. Some are about the healing spells of runes, some are alchemy based on runes, and some are about runes lowering the threshold for learning. He even vaguely revealed a thought, that is, being able to study systematically as a squib, and hopefully cast spells. All of this is to pave the way for the promotion of the magic system in the future. He does not seek to gain much fame, but he must make runes enter the eyes of all wizards. With his thoughts turning, Lockhart gathered his thoughts and began to complete today's plan. He said to Dumbledore gently, Principal, regarding the autobiography, last time we talked about your teaching at Hogwarts. What do you think is worth writing about? Hearing Lockhart's question, Dumbledore shook his hand slightly and said, let's talk about the autobiography later. Last time you talked to me about runes, I thought about it and hoped that my old bones could still help a little. Principal, really? Lockhart suddenly felt as if he had been hit on the head by a surprise and was a little confused. Before, he had been thinking about getting the principal to join his magic research, and he tried his best to release various baits, but he refused to eat. Unexpectedly, now he actually said he wanted to join. Could it be that his recent luck has reached its peak? Not long after he hired a full-time worker, Dumbledore chose to join again today. This made him so happy. Seeing Lockhart's surprised expression, Dumbledore nodded gently. Well, he has always been clear about Lockhart's thoughts. He just wants to use his own power to promote research, and even endorse the promotion of runes in the future. It is normal for young people to always be obsessed with fame and profit. He was also affected by these when he was young, but when he got older, he looked down on these. At first, because of Tom's affairs, he was not interested in getting involved and wasting his energy. But now it's no longer possible. Lockhart's research has a more and more far-reaching impact. If he doesn't intervene anymore, I'm afraid that when he wants to intervene again, it will be too late to stop. At least after joining, he can still guide Lockhart not to go astray. Seeing Dumbledore's affirmation again, Lockhart said quickly, Principal, I will compile a copy of the latest research materials and give it to you later. I believe that the future potential of runes will definitely live up to your expectations. I'm full of confidence in this. Hearing what Lockhart said, Dumbledore shook his hand slightly and said gently, Lockhart, don't worry. Before the research, I want to share a story with you, which is also the story of my best friend, Grindelwald. PS. One more chapter will be added at 6 o'clock tonight, and one more chapter will be added for every 1000 subscriptions. Chapter 120 for the greater good. Grindelwald. Lockhart was a little surprised to hear Dumbledore's words. Grindelwald, the first generation of the Dark Lord, Dumbledore's best friend, lover, and a pioneer of the Wizarding World Revolution. He had heard many people discuss Grindelwald's title in his previous life, but Dumbledore's sudden words made him a little overwhelmed. Could it be that he was regarded as the third generation of the Dark Lord? The thought came to his mind, and he felt a little ridiculous. If he was really the third generation of the Dark Lord, then there would be no need to talk about him. He should be arrested and sent to Azkaban. However, as his thoughts turned, Lockhart quickly gathered his irrelevant thoughts and pretended to listen to Principal Dumbledore. "Principal, please talk." Dumbledore waved his wand, and a transparent glass floated in front of Lockhart. Then, honey juice surged from the glass. "Don't worry, Lockhart. Try the honey juice, and we will taste it while talking." As he said, some candies and snacks floated in front of the two. Lockhart took a sip of honey and listened attentively to Dumbledore's story. The gossip about Dumbledore and Grindelwald was a good opportunity to eat melons. Gatler Grindelwald. People of your age may not have much impression of him. Looking at Lockhart's actions, Dumbledore began to speak slowly. "After all, it has been 20 or 30 years since you were born. But you should have heard of his name, the first generation of Dark Lord." Dumbledore paused here, and Lockhart showed a just right look of surprise on his face. "The first generation of Dark Lord?" "Yes." Dumbledore nodded gently. "Do you know why he is called the Dark Lord?" Dumbledore asked back. "Is it because too many wizards died because of him?" Lockhart answered as if guessing. "Lockhart, you are right." Dumbledore nodded and said, "Back then, not only wizards died because of him, but also a large number of muggles. The Second World War you know about was actually Grindelwald supporting Hitler behind the scenes. Hundreds of millions of deaths were all related to him." Hearing this, a trace of surprise flashed across Lockhart's face. In his previous life, he only knew that Grindelwald had started a war in the wizarding world, and a large number of wizards died because of it. Unexpectedly, there were traces of Grindelwald in the Second World War. "Do you know the slogan that Grindelwald saints often shouted back then?" Dumbledore said, without waiting for Lockhart to answer, and slowly said, "For the greater good." Jettler is a typical wizard supremacist. He believes that the threat of muggles is too great. In order to ensure the safety of wizards, it is best for wizards to rule muggles. Hearing this, Lockhart nodded thoughtfully. "What do you think of Jettler's point of view?" Dumbledore suddenly asked. Lockhart pondered for a moment and said, "As a wizard, from a wizard's perspective, I can understand Grindelwald's ideas." Then, Lockhart did not continue to speak, for he was afraid that, if he continued to speak, Dumbledore would directly arrest him and put him in Azkaban. Lockhart did not continue to speak, and Dumbledore was not disappointed, and continued to speak. "The views he put forward are very tempting. Wizards are supreme, and no wizard would reject such a view. But he failed in the end. Do you know why?" In response to Dumbledore's question, Lockhart seemed to reply very seriously, "Because you defeated Grindelwald. Grindelwald can't see hope for the future." Well, in fact, the first sentence is perfunctory, and the second sentence is Lockhart's answer after real thinking. Dumbledore's blow is secondary. Lockhart believes that the emergence of nuclear bombs has made Grindelwald completely lose hope for the future. His ideals were shattered, his beloved betrayed him, and he was besieged by the entire wizarding world, so he finally chose to imprison himself in Nurmengard. Otherwise, Lockhart might have heard about Grindelwald's activities. After all, for a top strong man, betrayal and siege are not to be feared, but the most fearful thing is to see no hope, and the pursuit of what he has spent his whole life energy has become an illusion. Few people can withstand such a blow. However, such a person, as long as he sees hope, he is crazier than anyone else. Dumbledore shook his head at Lockhart's answer, and said slowly in a serious manner, "Because he is against order. Hogwarts. Defense against the Dark Arts Office." After returning from the principal's office, Lockhart sat in a chair and began to revise his plan. Dumbledore officially joined his magic research, which made him feel happy. but the subsequent communication made him silent. There are some loopholes in the plan, or he thought the enemy was too simple. As his thoughts turned, although Lockhart felt a little pressure in his heart, he was not too worried. After all, strength is the final guarantee. He can travel through the Marvel world, and the upper limit of his strength is far beyond the imagination of all wizards. You know, the Marvel world has existences that span the multiverse. After thinking for a moment, Lockhart took out Voldemort's Horcrux and placed it in front of him. Through soul projection, he entered the soul space of the Horcrux in the soul state and prepared to use the simulation function of the soul space to carry out magic research. When the contract was signed, Tom's performance in all aspects made Lockhart very satisfied. He is worthy of being a hero. A hero is a hero who knows the times. Tuesday morning, Diagon Alley, Gringotts. Lockhart stood at the door of Gringotts, looking at the words written on the bronze door, his mouth curled up, revealing a sarcastic smile. Please come in, stranger, but you have to be careful. What will happen if you are greedy? Just asking for it, getting something for nothing. You will be punished most severely. This is a poem describing that thieves will be punished. But what does Lockhart think? They all feel that it reveals a sense of irony, talking about greed and asking for it. Goblins are famous for their greed for treasures, and they have a lot of rights to ask for. Thinking about it, Lockhart gathered his mind, stepped directly through the bronze door, and entered the spacious marble hall. At a glance, behind the long counter, goblins were sitting on high stools receiving batches of guests. Lockhart glanced at the hall, found a place with the least people and waited silently. Tonight, he and Snape will attend a Dark Wizard auction, which is a very high level, and can be called top-notch. There are many good things in it, but at the same time, more gold galleons are needed. This trip to Gringotts is mainly to take some gold galleons, and at the same time, take out all the things that he has stored in Gringotts. In the future, the goblins will probably want to kill him and store his things with the enemy. How stupid is he to do this? Soon, it was his turn in the team. The goblin sitting on the high stool looked down at Lockhart in front of him and asked expressionlessly, "Mr. Lockhart, what business do you want to handle? Thank you for your support, and the next one will be updated when the average subscription increases by 100, that is, 1100 more." Chapter 121 The Fairy's Weird Attitude. The goblin named Turner looked at Gilderoy Lockhart in front of him and felt a bit bad. During this period, he had heard other goblins discussing it a lot, and he had even received Lockhart in front of him. Recently, he didn't know what was wrong with him, and he kept taking money out. He just didn't put money in. You know, Lockhart originally had more than 30,000 gold galleons in the vault. As a result, he kept taking money out, and now there are less than 1,000. These are all real gold galleons, only out and no in. Which goblin can stand it? But in view of basic literacy, he could only hide his inner disgust in his heart and look at Lockhart in front of him expressionlessly. "Mr. Lockhart, what business do you want to handle?" Lockhart naturally didn't know about the goblin's inner disgust, but in response to the goblin's question, he still reached out and took out an envelope, handed it to the goblin in front of him, and said lightly, "Take my royalties, a total of 2,745 gold galleons. Also, take me to my vault." Well, the amount of royalties this time was a bit beyond Lockhart's expectations. Originally, he thought that the royalties this time would be more than 1,000 gold galleons, but he didn't expect that he would become a little famous again with the identity of a Hogwarts professor, and it actually broke through the circle. Originally, his books were only sold in the UK, but he didn't expect that a group of foreign readers also bought his books, and with the interesting stories, there was even a feeling that they were getting more and more popular. Lockhart made a lot of money for no reason. It has to be said that the identity of a Hogwarts professor is really useful, and it is worthy of being the #1 school in the entire wizarding world. Since the royalties have come out, Lockhart will naturally take them out to deal with the auction tonight. The goblin Turner listened to the reply of the wizard in front of him, and his expressionless face suddenly darkened. Hearing Lockhart's answer, he had to take gold galleons again. But due to the contract and the responsibility, he still replied, checked the envelope handed over by Lockhart, and stamped it. a young goblin came over and said, "Mr. Lockhart, he will take you to your vault and collect the royalties." Then he couldn't help asking another question. "If you want to put the royalties in the vault, don't bother, we will arrange it." Lockhart shook his head and said lightly, "Don't bother, I will go to my vault to get some things first and then take my royalties away." The young goblin standing next to him heard it. It might be the first time he saw Lockhart. He looked at Lockhart repeatedly, and a trace of pity was revealed on his face. Ahem. Lockhart coughed lightly and motioned for the other party to lead the way. After the goblin reacted, he quickly turned around and walked forward, and Lockhart followed the young goblin, passed through a door, and entered a rough cave. The cave was a little cramped, but due to the large number of torches placed in various positions, the brightness was still acceptable. Lockhart walked through the grotto and came to a place similar to a cliff. He saw iron locks and railways appearing in front of him. Without any surprise, he quietly waited for the goblin in front of him to start performing. Whoosh! The young goblin whistled, and soon a cart slid along the railway in front of them. Lockhart got on the cart with the goblin, and the cart began to speed through the maze-like corridor. However, he felt the strong wind coming towards him. Lockhart waved slightly, and a protective shield appeared in front of him and the goblin. "Thank you, sir." The goblin driving the cart in front thanked him. In response, Lockhart nodded slightly, said a polite word, and didn't say much. Soon, the cart began to slow down and stopped next to a vault. The goblin began to introduce, "Sir, we have arrived at vault number 1273. As he said that, he walked out of the cart, holding a bunch of keys in his hand, led the way, and inserted them into the keyhole. Boom. The door of the vault opened with a roar. After entering the vault, Lockhart looked at the few magic items and the gold galleons scattered on the ground. Only a thin layer. A trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. He had spent a lot of gold galleons during this period, especially since he had just come here to save his life. He spent a lot of money on various magic items to save his life. But fortunately, now the source of money has been found, and he can make a fortune from today's auction. Well, since he knew there would be an auction tonight, then he naturally prepared some things in advance, and auctioned them through Snape's channels to recover some funds. He waved his wand, and put all the gold galleons in the vault and the scattered magic items into the space extension bag on his waist. Looking at the empty vault, he nodded secretly. Then the young goblin Knot, who was standing behind Lockhart, and saw the whole scene, asked with a heartbroken face, "Sir, are you really going to take all the gold galleons?" As if Lockhart was taking his gold galleons. Seeing the goblin Knot's expression, Lockhart almost couldn't help laughing, and suddenly recalled the things that happened in the bank in his previous life. He had heard in his previous life that some banks really treated depositors' money as their own money and used it at will. Then something really went wrong. Later, in order to prevent depositors from withdrawing money, various means were frequently used. I just don't know if goblins would do such a thing. Thinking about it, Lockhart nodded seriously, without a direct answer, and said lightly, "Come on, take me to get my royalties." When the goblin Knot heard it, he covered his chest with some heartache, and walked out with Lockhart dejectedly. Then, Lockhart watched the goblin, who was a little depressed, close the vault door, and blow a whistle to summon a cart, which took him to slide along the railway. Soon, they arrived at a spacious platform. The layout was roughly the same as the marble hall in front. Behind the scattered counters, a small number of goblins sat on high stools. However, there are very few people here, and there are also very few counters. The overall environment is much darker, not as bright and clean as the marble paradise. There is even some dirt on the ground that has not been wiped clean. This made Lockhart speechless. Even if they don't want people to withdraw money, is it necessary to make the environment so disgusting? He has a deeper understanding of the nature of this group of goblins. It is simply the miser and grandit's characteristics to the extreme. The front hall is for service. People come here to deposit money or open the vault, etc. Maybe in their eyes, it is just to send money. So it is made very clean and bright. There are many service windows, and the service attitude is also very good, at least in the original body's memory. But in the back hall, many people come to withdraw money like himself. Result: he shook his head slightly, gathered his thoughts, walked to a counter, and handed over an envelope, showing the stamp that the goblins in the hall had deducted before. He said to the goblin calmly, "I want to collect my royalties." Then he emphasized, "A total of 2,745 gold galleons." He was a little worried now. If he didn't emphasize it, these goblins would do something to him. After all, these goblins were really unreliable. The process of collecting the gold galleons was very smooth, without any accidents. After taking it, he turned around, took out 3 gold galleons, and handed them to the young goblin lot in front of him. Lockhart gently patted the goblin lot's shoulder and said calmly, "2 gold galleons are used to continue to keep my vault, and more gold galleons will be delivered later. The remaining one is your tip." "Thank you, sir, thank you." After the goblin lot took his tip, he swept away his previous dejection and thanked him with excitement. But what he didn't notice was that when Lockhart patted his shoulder just now, a light golden mark quietly emerged and then disappeared in an instant. Thanks to bookfriend 2019060313292875 for the 100-point reward. Thanks to Yashishi and Ming, turning around and dreaming. Bookfriend 202205131305576618. Bookfriend 2022040721112474. Bookfriend 151,207,082,521,291. Bookfriend 20210301105262095138. And reader 1530002039791377612 for their monthly tickets. Chapter 120 To the Gugu Seeking Death. Tuesday night, London, Turn Square. Snape, how much do you know about this black market? I never thought that the black market would be in such a busy square. Lockhart followed Snape walking in Turn Square, looking at the muggles playing around in the square, and asked Snape casually. However, Snape seemed to be like a piece of wood and didn't hear anything about Lockhart's question. As if he wanted to get rid of something, he subconsciously sped up. And Lockhart was not surprised at all, or he was used to it. He casually added a concealment spell to the Bulbird Gugu who was looking around, and continued to follow Snape's steps. After a while, Snape stopped, and Lockhart looked at the slender, dark black telephone pole in front of him, feeling the faint magic fluctuations, and a strange thought emerged in his mind. I didn't expect the entrance to the black market to be so strange. Normally, this telephone pole would not cause electric shock. What if it was due to the muggle shielding spell? No one maintained it, and it fell into disrepair for a long time, and then it leaked electricity. TSK, that's very interesting. Touch 1, die. While daydreaming, Lockhart imitated Snape, and reached out to touch a position in the middle of the telephone pole, then pressed hard, and in an instant, the figure disappeared. The scene changed, and in a flash, Lockhart found himself in a very noisy place similar to Diagon Alley. There were all kinds of wizards wearing colorful wizard robes all around. Many exuded despair, darkness, and evil. Dark wizards. There were also some who were dressed decently and elegantly like himself now. If I guessed correctly, they should be wizards from pure-blood families or wizards who have received orthodox education. As for Professor Snape, although he looked very clean, he had a cold face and wore a black wizard robe. He was like a big bat, exuding a cold breath. At first glance, he was a dark wizard. Snape looked at Lockhart's eyes, and was a little unhappy. He said coldly, "Lockhart, follow closely, otherwise you can't enter the auction. You can take your time to browse the black market by yourself." As he said that, he walked forward without waiting for Lockhart's reaction. But Lockhart didn't care. Now he was the demander and Snape was the supplier, so he naturally had nothing to say. When he became the supplier and Snape became the demander, he would have a chance to play slowly. Soon, Lockhart followed Snape into a hall. A squib-like a waiter came over, and Snape handed out an invitation. The sharp-eyed Lockhart saw the dark green mark constantly moving on the surface of the invitation and was thoughtful. Then, he saw the squib saluted respectfully, and led the way. Seeing this scene, Lockhart was a little emotional. The status of the squibs in the wizarding world is indeed a bit low, and they even seem very humble because they want to learn magic. If they are given a chance, I really don't know what potential they can unleash. The thought flashed through his mind, and Lockhart followed Snape into a long corridor and passed through a black wooden door. After entering, he was a little surprised to see that there was only a small private room inside, but then he heard the waiter leading the way introducing Snape. "Professor Snape, this is your private room. Through the projection, you can quickly see the current auction items. Just press the button to join the auction." Soon, the waiter introduced the functions of the entire private room and left the room respectfully. Lockhart looked at the entire private room, cast a counter spell on the Gugu on his shoulder, and revealed his figure. He touched Gugu's dark blue fur and put it directly on the table in the middle of the private room. There were some magic snacks there. Gugu. Watching Gugu tilting his head to look at the various snacks that appeared in front of him, he occasionally cried out curiously, stretched out his wings, and touched them carefully, and felt that there was no danger, so he ate them one by one. Lockhart glanced at it and didn't care. This delicious Gugu basically accepted all the food. It's such a waste of its good intuition. Look at Spider-Man. He uses it for chivalry, while Gugu uses it for exploring food. The idea turned. Lockhart walked straight to the glass opposite, looked at the large number of wizards sitting below, turned to look at Snape, and said with some emotion, "Snape, it seems that your identity is very useful. If it were me, I would probably sit below to participate in this auction. Don't think about these useless things." Snape reminded lightly, "Look at how many gold galleons you brought. Don't wait until the auction items come out and find that you have no money to buy them. Don't worry, I brought my family assets this time." Lockhart said he didn't care about Snape's reminder and seemed quite confident. "Today, I went to Gringotts to bring all my family assets, and also went to the Travers family on the way, signed a contract for the supply of the Marvel World Youth Potion, and got a deposit. In addition to the magic items he prepared for auction in advance." Lockhart said that his wallet was very arrogant tonight. Snape was a little surprised by the confidence in Lockhart's words, but he didn't think much about it. After all, this guy has found a lot of hidden treasures, and he might have a large number of gold galleons in his hands. Immediately, he found a seat and sat down, closing his eyes to rest, waiting for the auction to start. After looking at the entire box, Lockhart took out a book and read quietly, also waiting for the auction to start. "Dear gentlemen and ladies, welcome to the Blackstone auction." Hearing the voice in his ear, Lockhart came back to his senses from the book. Looking at Gugu, who was tilting his head in the box and curiously looking at Snape, Lockhart's eyes twitched a little. He didn't forget that Snape once mentioned that the brain of the bull escape bird was a good thing. Then, he ignored Gugu, who was looking for death, greeted Snape, and focused on the magic projection in front of him. In the projection, a goblin stood on a high platform with a group of magic potions on it, and shouted loudly, "Dream Soul Potion, this is a good thing that the Ministry of Magic prohibits from selling. Wizards, do you want to improve your mental power? A set of Dream Soul Potion, a total of 10 bottles, will help you feel the beauty of rapid mental growth. Starting price 50 gold galleons." The familiar name made Lockhart look at it curiously, and then he couldn't help but look at Snape with his eyes closed. Good guy. Snape thought the same as him, thinking about making a fortune at the auction. This set of Dream Soul Potion, including the bottle and even the mark, is exactly the same as the one Snape gave him. Soon, this set of Dream Soul Potion rose to 100 gold galleons, and was finally bought by a pureblood family at a high price of 130 gold galleons. When the price was determined, Lockhart was sure that he saw a smile flashing on Snape's cold face. Then, he stopped paying attention to Snape and pulled Gugu back with one hand, holding him in his arms, and together with Gugu, they looked at the magic projection in front of them. One after another, the auction items kept appearing in Lockhart's eyes. When he saw something that interested him, Lockhart would spend gold galleons to buy it. Suddenly, the auction items that appeared in front of him attracted Lockhart's attention. To be more precise, even Snape opened his eyes and took a look. "Dear wizards, do you want to embrace the goddess of luck? Do you want to solve problems like God? Do you want?" A series of extremely tempting words came out of the goblin's mouth. Then, He shouted loudly. Yes, what you see in front of you is the top potion in the wizarding world, the lucky potion. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123, House Elves. You heard it right, it's the luck potion. Look at this tempting light golden liquid and the mark on the potion. According to the appraisal of the Blackrock auction, this bottle of potion was made by the top potion master, Horace Sloan. Just one drop, and you can touch the soft little hand of the goddess of luck, and you can. During the tempting introduction of the fairy can, Lockhart asked Snape, "Snape, are you sure this was made by Professor Horn? I inquired about him some time ago, but there has been no useful information." Snape nodded and said, "There is no problem with the potion. The mark is also from Professor Horn, and I know the appraiser of the Blackrock auction. He is reliable." As he spoke, Snape revealed a hint of doubt in his words. Is Professor Horn short of money now? It shouldn't be. If he is short of money, he should sell other potions, not the luck potion. Snape, who is well versed in the buying and selling of potions, knows very well which potion makes the fastest money. First of all, it must be banned by the Ministry of Magic, following the principle that the more it is banned, the more popular it becomes. Another thing is that it works quickly, like the Dream Soul potion, which can instantly improve your mental strength after drinking it. Finally, and most importantly, it must be made quickly, so that you can make money the fastest. The Felixi potion is difficult to make, and takes a long time to make. If you are not careful, it will fail. Although it seems that it can be exchanged for a large number of gold galleons, it is obvious that the efficiency of making money is low, and there is even a high risk of losing money. In general, the best choice for the Felixi potion is to give favors to others, which can quickly build relationships. When Lockhart saw the Felixi potion in front of him, he didn't have time to think about it, and immediately pressed the button to participate in the auction. The price has now risen to 360 gold galleons. The Felixi potion is hard to come by, and he was very lucky to get a bottle of the Felixi potion through a certain channel before. It was also made by Professor Horn. After giving it to Thor, he came back and immediately contacted the previous channel to get another bottle. He originally thought that he could get a bottle to save his life like before. As a result, there was no news. He wrote to Professor Horn and asked to buy a bottle at a high price, but he didn't get a reply. This made him regret it. Now that he has the opportunity to get another bottle of Felixi potion, he will not give up. Soon, the price has climbed to 560 gold galleons, but the bidding speed has obviously slowed down at this time. Gritting his teeth, Lockhart continued to press the button. Seeing this scene, Snape didn't say much. Before, Lockhart wanted him to help refine a bottle of Felixi potion, seeing that there were many benefits. He said he could help refine it, but when he mentioned that it would take at least 4 months to refine it, Lockhart hesitated immediately. Although he didn't know the reason, he didn't bother to say it if Lockhart didn't mention it. After all, it was really troublesome to refine the Felixi potion. Now there was a ready-made bottle in front of him, and Lockhart's attitude was normal. Soon, the price soared to 700 gold galleons, and as Lockhart pressed the button again, this time, no other wizard raised the price. Soon, the Goblinkin shouted with some regret. 730 gold galleons. Is there anyone who wants to bid? Only one drop will make you understand the mind of your beloved girl and solve the puzzle you have been thinking about for a long time, so that you can. No more. Then I will hammer. Is it really gone? Hearing the goblin chattering below, constantly tempting others to bid, as if he would not stop until all his gold galleons were taken out. In response, Lockhart looked at the magic projection in front of him expressionlessly, and deeply imprinted the face of the goblin in his mind. At this time, the price of the fueling potion had been inflated a lot, and other wizards also saw Lockhart's attitude of being determined to win. Finally, with the goblin cat dropping the auction hammer heavily, the fueling potion officially fell into Lockhart's hands. Then, the can began to take out the next auction item. This time, the auction item was a magic item sold by Lockhart, which was the Hermes boots produced by Kamar-Taj. It has the ability to allow wizards to walk in the void and increase speed. For ordinary wizards, flying can only rely on magic brooms. Flying spells are rare in the market and are generally only available to pureblood families. Of course, Lockhart suspected that this was a side-ruling method of the pureblood family, not allowing ordinary wizards to have the ability to fly and reduce threats. Therefore, the ability of the Hermes boots hit the pain points of many wizards at once. In addition, the eloquence of the Goblinkin who hosted the auction was really good, and the Hermes boots were sold at a price of 610 gold galleons. In this way, Lockhart felt much better. This goblin ability is still good. Then, several high-quality auction items appeared in succession. Lockhart took a few glances and found that he didn't need them, so he didn't pay too much attention. Instead, a long-lost potion material appeared, and Snape bought it at the price of 520 gold galleons. As one auction item after another emerged, Lockhart sighed. It is worthy of being a top auction. There are really many good things. Even the fueling potion has appeared. I just don't know what I want. Soon, when Lockhart saw the auction items projected by magic, his eyes lit up. On the high platform, a house elf dressed in rags, but very clean stood there blankly. Dear wizards, please pay attention. The auction items this time are quite rare, enough to be the foundation of a wizard family. That is, house elf. As we all know, house elf is a symbol of status. As long as you have one, it is enough to symbolize that you have entered the upper circle of the wizarding world. Any pureblood family has to look up to you. Listening to the goblins below constantly fooling and exaggerating, Lockhart curled his lips in disdain. If it was really so magical, the house elf would have been scrambling for it. But he was right about one thing, a house elf can really serve as the foundation of a wizard family. The loyalty and hard work of house elves have been tested by thousands of years of history. As long as you have one, with a little trickery, you can ensure that every generation of wizards in your family has a good quality of life. Even if there is a generation of squibs or problems, a house elf casting magic is enough to ensure the safety of the family. Thousands of years of history have verified that our wizards have a common understanding that house elves are loyal subordinates who can be trusted. The appearance of house elves has made many wizards excited, especially for some pureblood families without house elves, which is very tempting. It is a very face-saving thing to have a house elf serving your family. For pureblood families, how much money is secondary, and face is the most important. Later, Lockhart also joined the snatch war, looking at the soaring prices, thinking about the plan behind, gritted his teeth, and kept pressing the auction button. In the end, Lockhart successfully obtained the ownership of this house elf at the price of 1,200 gold galleons. Although the price is a bit high, Lockhart feels it is still worth it. With the first, the second, and the third will not be far away. As his strength increases, the cost of obtaining will definitely become lower and lower. Then, several more rounds of auction items came, and the Blackstone auction officially ended. P.S. Thank you for your support. The average subscription was already full of 1100, but it dropped again due to a large number of updates. However, updates cannot be reduced. Well, this is a matter of principle. I hope everyone will support me. As long as it stabilizes, I will update 5 more times today. Chapter 124, Krill Ancient Wizard. Backstage of the Blackstone auction. Professor Lockhart, here are your items and the gold galleons from the auction. The previous fees have been deducted. For a distinguished customer like you, our boss said that this time we will only charge a 1-point handling fee. Also, this is the medal that our Blackstone auction gives to the most distinguished guests. Remember to keep it. The information about the auction will be notified through the medal. The Goblinkin, who just hosted the auction, had a flattering look on his face and said to Lockhart in a flattering manner. He held the space extension bag in both hands, and next to it was a dark green medal. In the middle of the medal, a dark black stone was engraved. On the edge of the medal, the name of the black market auction was written. Lockhart looked at the can's flattering expression, raised his eyebrows, took the space extension bag, and asked lightly, "Then thank your boss for me. Also, where is my house elf?" Professor Lockhart, wait a moment. In response to Lockhart's question, the Goblin Can immediately replied, "The Avery family will be here soon, and we will prepare the handover ceremony for the house elf at that time. The Blackstone auction will ensure that there will be no problems. His circle is different from Gringotts. Through his circle, it is known that Professor Lockhart has been very generous in recent times. Various potions and magic items are purchased in large quantities. It's simply the arrival of the god of wealth." In response to the Can's answer, Lockhart nodded lightly, thought about it, took out 3 gold galleons from the bag, handed them to the Goblin Can, and said lightly, "Your auction level is quite good. This is a tip." "Thank you, Professor Lockhart. Thank you." After hearing this, the Goblin Can was a little surprised and hurriedly took it over, constantly expressing gratitude, and his attitude became more flattering. But what he didn't know was that when he took it, a pale golden mark engraved on the gold galleon sank into his hand. Then, Lockhart sat down on the sofa next to him, opened the space extension bag, and checked if there was any missing. Looking at the large number of gold galleons and various magic items inside, of course, the most important thing is the pale golden small bottle of potion at the top, the fueling potion, with a satisfied smile on his face. This time, the trip to the black market auction can be said to be very successful. Goo goo, the Bolbad sitting on the shoulder, felt that his breeder was very excited. He was a little curious, and tilted his head to look at the bag in the breeder's hand. Then he raised his head with disdain. "It's not food. What's there to be excited about?" Gugu didn't quite understand, and continued to look around at the novel environment. Lockhart looked at Snape, who also came back with a space extension bag, and waved. "Snape, I have something else to do here. If you are in a hurry, you can go back to Hogwarts first. I will go back after I finish it." Snape looked at the Gugu on Lockhart's shoulder, nodded, and said briefly, "Okay." Then he walked past Lockhart and walked out of the Blackstone auction. He naturally knew what Lockhart was going to do. He witnessed with his own eyes that Lockhart spent more than 1,000 gold galleons to buy a house elf. Although he didn't know why Lockhart bought a house elf alone, he obviously didn't have the curiosity. His gains this time were not small. Just the lost potion material alone was worth going back to study carefully. After a while, the goblin jar seemed to have received some information and flattered Lockhart. "Professor Lockhart, the Avery family is about to arrive. The house elf handover ceremony will be held soon." As he spoke, Lockhart saw a middle-aged man in a black wizard robe coming from a distance, and behind him, the house elf he had seen on the magic projection before. Seeing this, the goblin jar immediately went to meet him, and Lockhart stood up from the sofa. "Hello, Professor Lockhart, I'm Hanson Avery." Hanson Avery's attitude was a little embarrassed. His family was in decline, and he had to sell the house elf inherited from the family. This was a scandal for the pure-blooded Avery family, especially since the other party was a professor at Hogwarts and his son was studying in Slytherin College. He felt even more ashamed. However, Lockhart didn't think much about it. He shook the other party's hand very naturally, then put it down and said gently, "Mr. Avery, let's start the ceremony." "Okay." Hanson Avery nodded, and then ordered the timid house elf next to him, Gold Coin, stand in the middle. The house elf Gold Coin, wearing rags, seemed to know his fate, and walked to the middle of Lockhart and Hanson Avery with some shakiness. Looking at his future master Lockhart, and then looking at his current master, his eyes revealed confusion and panic. "Golden Coin, from now on, you are no longer the house elf of the Avery family. Your master will be Professor Gilderoy Lockhart. According to the ceremony, you cannot disclose any secrets about the Avery family. Apart from that, all orders are subject to Professor Lockhart. The Avery family has nothing to do with you anymore. Professor Gilderoy Lockhart will be your only master." As he spoke, Hanson Avery handed out a pair of black socks and ordered indifferently, "Now, hand it to your current master." "Okay, master." The house elf Gold Coin looked lost, and took the black socks from his former master with trembling arms. Then he walked towards Lockhart step by step, and handed the black socks in his hand to his current master Gilderoy Lockhart. Lockhart, who knew about this set of handover ceremony in advance, naturally took it, and then put the socks into another space extension bag without anything in it with some disdain. He was full of desire to complain about this set of ceremony. When the master gave the house elf socks, it meant the freedom of the house elf. When the house elves handed the socks to others, it represented submission. It was a bit childish, but this was a tradition formed after the house elves were enslaved for many years. It was ingrained in their bones and formed their instincts. One cannot help but sigh that the ancient wizards were really cruel, and they could turn such a strange ceremony into a tradition of the house elves. What did the house elves do that angered the heavens and the people? It actually made the ancient wizards do such a thing. After years of deliberate cultivation, this seemingly childish behavior became a tradition of the house elves, engraved in their bones. Hanson Avery let out a sigh of relief when he saw Lockhart put away the socks. The ceremony was over, which meant that the more than 1,000 gold galleons in his pocket had finally landed safely. This money was a life-saving straw for the Avery family. You know, in his family, except for him, only his son was a wizard, and everyone else was a squib, and his son was currently studying in Slytherin College. However, when he thought of Lockhart's identity, Hanson Avery's face was a little hesitant, but he still said, "Professor Lockhart, my son Anthony Avery is currently studying in Slytherin College. Please help take care of him." As he said that, he stretched out his hand and took out a dark purple magic book, which appeared in his hand, and handed it to Lockhart. "Professor Lockhart, I heard from my son that you like reading. This is a magic book inherited from our family. I give it to you." Lockhart looked at the book in front of him with a slight fluctuation of magic power, glanced at Anthony Avery, shook his head slightly, and smiled. "Don't worry, Mr. Avery, I think Anthony is a good child, and I will take care of him if I can. No need for gifts." At this point, Lockhart recalled the situation of the Avery family and said meaningfully, "Maybe we will have a chance to cooperate in the future." Chapter 125 The Reason for Eternal Slavery. Hogsmeade, Lockhart's study. The originally dim study suddenly appeared with a circle of sparks. Then, Lockhart took a step forward, with a dark blue bowl bird, Cuckoo, sitting on his shoulder, and the house elf, Gold, following behind. With a light wave of Lockhart's hand, the entire study, including the corridor and living room outside, lit up in an instant. Lockhart looked at Gold, who was wearing rags in front of him, sitting on a chair, and put Cuckoo on the desk next to him, and asked directly, "Goldcoin, tell me about your current situation and the fairy magic you have mastered." The timid Goldcoin immediately bent down, made a deep bow, then raised his head suddenly and said loudly, "Master, Goldcoin was the house elf of the Avery family before. Now the only master is you, and your will is the lifelong pursuit of Goldcoin. Goldcoin will completely obey all the orders of the master." Hearing this, Lockhart frowned slightly, but he also knew that this was the typical character of the house elf, so he directly ordered, "Goldcoin, don't say any more. Tell me about the magic you have mastered first." "Okay, master." Goldcoin nodded quickly, and then replied loudly, "Master, currently, I have mastered the teleportation spell, the repulsion spell, and the invisibility spell." Hearing the series of magic that Goldcoin burst out, Lockhart raised his eyebrows, waited for Goldcoin to reply, and asked curiously, "Goldcoin, where did you learn magic from?" "Master, some of it was taught to me by my mother." Goldcoin replied loudly, "The other part is that I naturally understood it as I grew up." "Then what percentage of magic do you know?" Lockhart asked with great interest. The Goldcoin frowned and fiddled with his fingers. After a while, he said hesitantly, "Master, I have mastered 27 kinds of fairy magic in total, about 70%. "What?" Hearing the answer from the Goldcoin, Lockhart's heart seemed to be stirred up. Instantly, he knew why the house elves were so miserable. There was no other reason, but their potential was too strong. Although 27 kinds of magic didn't sound like much, ordinary little wizards could master 30 or 40 kinds after training. However, little wizards were trained, and some little wizards still found it difficult to master them after years of training. House elves, on the other hand, were born with the ability to master them. What does this mean? A huge threat. For ancient wizards, even if house elves pursued peace, their powerful potential was a sin. And being weak was even more of an original sin. Ancient wizards would not let go of any race that might threaten their status, especially a race that could not beat them. Now Lockhart asked himself, if he had discovered the potential of the house elves, he would not have left it alone. The reason why the ancient wizards did not exterminate them was probably because they saw the potential of the house elves. No wonder they were so cruel. This was done entirely for the purpose of eternal slavery. At this time, Lockhart looked at the gold coin with a different look, full of desire to study. The ability to master magic innately must be related to blood. But soon, he suppressed his desire to study. He was not in a hurry. The gold coin was now his house elf. According to the character of the house elf, the other party would never refuse any request he made, even if it was suicide. As far as he knew, the house elves of the Black family were proud to hang their heads on the exhibition wall before they died. Then, Lockhart asked the gold coin a few more questions. The gold coin told him the truth one by one, and Lockhart understood the gold coin more and more deeply. The deeper he understood, the more surprised he was in his heart. This purchase was indeed the right one. The fighting ability of the gold coin is no weaker than that of ordinary wizards. The most important thing is his loyalty, which is beyond doubt. His thoughts, education, and instincts are all about loyalty all the time. Loyalty to his master. When he thought of this, Lockhart's eyes flashed with excitement. Looking at the gold coin in front of him, Lockhart felt more and more happy. Then, he gently waved his wand and pointed at the rags that the gold coin was wearing. In an instant, the rags that were originally grey and even a little dirty began to turn clean black, and then quickly changed and expanded, covering the entire body of the gold coin. Finally, the gold coin appeared in front of Lockhart wearing a black dress, a bit like the dress of a Gringotts goblin. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. He still had certain requirements for beauty. He really couldn't stand the gold coin wearing rags every day to follow him and do things for him. This was a potential pollution to his soul. Bang, bang, bang. When the gold coin looked at the very neat clothes on his body, he felt a little panic, so he kept hitting the ground with his head, making a loud bang. While smashing, he shouted loudly, "Master, gold coin knows he is wrong. Don't drive him away. Gold coin listens to you in everything. Gold coin doesn't want to wear this outfit. He wants to wear the original one back." Looking at gold coin's movements, Lockhart frowned slightly, sighed lightly, and ordered directly, "Gold coin, raise your head, don't move." Hearing Lockhart's order, gold coin, who was smashing his head on the ground, immediately raised his head and didn't move at all, completely respecting Lockhart's instructions. Seeing gold coin like this, Lockhart felt a little headache. Some habits of house elves are indeed very good, such as loyalty, not betrayal, obeying orders, taking labor as pride, and laziness as shame. However, some traditions of their house elves over the years have been criticized. For example, he just smashed his head on the ground or the wall at any time, and prayed through self-mutilation. This made Lockhart quite uncomfortable. He was not a saint, but he simply felt that it would be very difficult to communicate with such a house elf. Just changing clothes, it triggered their tradition of wearing tattered clothes, and they started to hurt themselves. If it was an outsider, he could just watch the show like a melon. After all, watching the excitement is not a big deal. But now it's his own subordinate's job. How can he not have a headache? After thinking about it, he said directly with an ordering tone, "Gold coin, you will wear this from now on. Be clean, and don't embarrass me. You must remember that I'm a professor at Hogwarts. When you go out, your clothes and your behavior will affect my face. So, I order you to keep your clothes clean in the future, and don't knock your head on the ground or the wall at every turn. If you do this again." Hearing Lockhart's order, gold coin's eyes immediately burst into tears, and he shouted with gratitude, "Thank you, master, thank you, master." As long as the master orders, gold coin will do it. Well, in the traditional worldview of house elves, a clean set of clothes means that the master thinks of them. That's why gold coin's reaction just now was so excited. But Lockhart's explanation and order, for the gold coin, who had been taught since childhood that the master's orders were more important than anything else, he immediately abandoned the so-called tradition. Especially since Lockhart specifically mentioned that his behavior would affect his face. He instantly knew how important he was in his master's heart. For a house elf, there is only one thing to pursue in life, that is, to please the master and increase his status in the master's heart. This is why Lockhart thinks that the ancient wizard's methods are a bit cruel. Can normal races and normal creatures have such thoughts? It is completely distorted by human beings. However, Lockhart simply complained that he was very happy about this race that was completely loyal to wizards. Well, double standards are double standards, and Lockhart has never denied that he is a double standard dog. Since he has enjoyed the benefits, he will not pick it up to eat and put it down to curse his mother. Then, Lockhart looked at the gold coin in front of him and fell into deep thought, a little hesitant. Should he be allowed to participate in tonight's plan? After all, it has been less than 24 hours since he recognized his master. After thinking about it, he made a decision in his heart. So he closed his eyes slightly and felt the mark he left on the goblin knot in Gringotts. P.S. When I woke up in the morning, I saw that the average subscription was approaching 1200. Thank you for your support. I will update again today. 5 more updates. After the 5 updates, even if the average subscription will drop, it should not drop below 1100, right? Thanks to the 100-point reward from Temperament Control and the 103-point reward from Around the Fire. Thanks to Mayo IE, I'm a Bandit, 6AQC9, Time Cannot Stop Love, The Blind Man is Right LSP's Hand, Riding a Wood to Find a Horse, Book Friend 20210301106505411364, The Illusion of Tears. Zuan Kang, Wu Jingson, and Drunk with a Sword, to cut the lamp for the monthly tickets. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.